Good afternoon. Okay, so we're about to start, but while we're waiting for people to still join, my name is Babatunde Sharon, and I'm going to be the anchor for today's program. We started off yesterday, and we're on the screenwriting workshop for African creatives, and we started yesterday, and we had two speakers that came here to enlighten us the art of skill writing and telling stories. So if you are here, you can just go to the chat box and say your name and where you're listening from while we're waiting for others to join. So yesterday we're explaining the importance of screenwriting, what screenwriting is, and how important screenwriting is in video production. The fact that screenwriting brings these stories to life. It's like it's like the blueprint of production, like and all. And we had two speakers yesterday, Miss Ozioma and Mr. Taiwo. And Miss Ozioma, a summary of what she spoke about yesterday. She, enlightened us on how to develop your mind as a screenwriter. She gave us some tips, the fact that you can, try new environments, read books, research, accept timelines that are reasonable as a screenwriter, things that are reasonable for you as a screenwriter. She spoke about things that we can consider before choosing a desired movie genre. The fact that you have to, like, whatever your story is or whatever genre that you are going into, the content of your story, the content of your movie, the content of your production has to go in line with that genre. And she also gave us the tips on how to structure and develop your screenplays. And then Mr. Taiwo came on here and gave us tips on how to write stories that sell, the art of storytelling. And he enlightened us on the fact that we should change from, like, the normal stories that everybody's saying. The fact that people are talking about gangsters now, that there are so many other aspects of Nigeria that nobody's talking about, nobody's writing about yet. They can, look at those areas. He also spoke about, the fact that as a screenwriter, you have to find your artistic voice. You have to find what works for you, the area of writing, the things that you can write about that works for you. So moving on for today, we're going to start with our first speaker. We're going to start with our first speaker, and she's going to be talking about movie acquisition and legal consideration. And our speaker for today is Miss Ololade Oloniyo. She's the managing partner at Starfield Practitioners, and section and sector lead of the technology, media, and entertainment arm of the firm. She's a legal practitioner with over 7 years' experience in the legal aspect of corporate finance, regulatory compliance, corporate governance, and intellectual property protection. She's also the Chief Executive Officer of the IP Business Capital, which is a business advisory firm providing cutting edge IP solutions to African institutions. Ms. Ololade is the convener of the IP Annual Conference, a platform that serves as a think tank where policymakers, investors, creative executives, IP professionals, and business owners. So, as I've already said before, she's the Chief Executive Officer of the IP Business Capital, which is the the host for today's program. So you're welcome to join us, Ma, and we're so grateful to have you on here today.
Okay, thank you so much, Sharon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I feel like I'm echoing, but okay. Okay, since you can hear me, let me proceed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so today we are going to be talking about movie acquisitions, right? And some of the legal considerations that you need to take, cognizance of before you start to run your production company, before you get into any negotiation deal, before you do anything at all, speak to anybody. I mean, if you're building something, it's important that you know there are legal consequences of certain actions, right? And that if you take, consideration, if you take legal consideration important, you'll be able to make money from your IP, you'll be able to make money from your film, and you'll be able to make money from your script, right? So our topic really is about acquisition of movies, right? What does that entail? What are the legal considerations? How can you protect yourself? How can you maximize your script? What are investors looking at? How can I position myself for investors out there? And all of that. Okay, so what really is movie acquisition? Is the process by which studio houses or executive producers acquire movie rights from the original owners. Okay, so we understand how the landscape is now. You have a film producer, or we have a screenwriter who doubles as the screenwriter and the executive producer or the producer. Okay, so you have a movie and you know that it's expensive, right? To actually make a good movie. I mean, from production equipment to hiring people and to making sure that the entire thing is tidy. So if you really want to make a fantastic movie with good production values, you know that you need to invest, right? And you need to bring people on board to buy into the idea so that you guys can do something great. So the process by which studio houses get interested in your work, right? And executive producers want to buy into what you're doing, right? Sometimes they might want to buy movie rights. Sometimes you might not want to give them all the rights. Sometimes you might want to give them all the rights. So that entire process is what I term as movie acquisition. So there are three things that happens, right? The first thing is that the buyer would always want to negotiate for the motion picture distribution rights. Okay, so the buyer would sometimes you have a situation where the buyer wants to acquire the entire distribution rights, or he wants to acquire the entire motion picture rights. Okay, at this point, the owner of the motion picture or the owner of the script should understand that you need the help of professionals, whether agents, whether lawyers, right? Just understand that you need the help of professionals once you start to negotiate for all these distribution rights and all these movie acquisition rights. Another scenario is when the studio house wants to outrightly buy the content, all right, leaving the owner with nothing. It happens all the time. They will tell you they will buy the content, they will buy the content rights, and they're going to, pay you some money. So this is not advisable because IP is a long-term project. You're supposed to be earning with it in long term, right? So I see situations where film producers, screenwriters are, very enthusiastic when they see that people are getting interested in their project, especially when they realize that investors, big executive producers are getting interested in their project. So understand that you should not sell your entire rights. I mean, anytime I'm having conversations with executive producers and script writers or film producers, they're always like, look, we don't want to sell all our rights out. Okay. So just have it at the back of your mind that your IP is tangible. It's a tangible asset and you can keep earning from it long term. So you don't have the luxury, or you don't need to sell all your IP rights to other people that are interested in your movie or in your script, so to say. So, at the stage of development, what do you need to take into consideration at the stage of development? At that stage of developing the movie, a clean chain of title is important. A clean chain of title is important. So, what's a clean chain of title? A clean chain of title is a series of legal documents that establishes that you have ownership rights. Sorry, that establishes that you have ownership rights over the motion picture. Okay, so once you're developing your work like that, once you're beginning to gather your talent, you're beginning to create a budget, you're writing a script that you know would appeal to your target audience, and you're doing all of that, you need to start to think clean chain of title. Okay, so if I'm using another person's copyrighted material, what do I need to do? We'll still get to that. If I'm collaborating with others, what do I need to do? Because we are talking about money here. I need to put in the work and I also need to make money. Okay, so if I'm doing all of this at the same time, what are the things that I need to put into consideration to ensure that I have a clean chain of title? And this is especially for those who are aspiring to be producers, production houses. Okay, when you're talking to people, they want to see that you have a clean chain of title. They want to see that you own the ownership rights. Okay, and the reason is that most of these investors want to have assurances in writing that the rights have been securely obtained, because they want to avoid issues related to litigation, disputes over ownership rights, and all of that. I'm sure you heard about the casala between Film One and some other, and this Eji, is it Ejiro, this Ejiro film producer, where they used the name. There was a trademark dispute over the name Domitila, the Domitila reboot. So you see, all of those things will come up. I'm sure they noticed some of those things during development, and I'm sure their legal team had a way of getting around that. Because at some point in time, we heard that that the matter did not fly in court. But these are real life issues, real life issues with respect to production of your film. Issues would arise. So it's very important that you have executives on board, your entertainment lawyer, your IP advisor, so that they can guide you through the development stage. That stage is very important in developing your story. Okay, so another thing that we most usually hear from screenwriters and writers are collaboration among screenwriters, where two screenwriters collaborate to draft a script, you know. In that instance, forget that the person is your friend, forget that the person is your lover, forget that the person is your paddy, have agreements in place, especially when you're doing it as a business. Okay, especially when you're doing it as a business. When you're doing it as a business, you have to start to think of it like a business. Okay, so don't just collaborate, have some sort of term sheet or some sort of arrangement or agreement, you know, that explains how you guys will be paid, what happens if the project is finally executed by you alone and the second writer drops out, you know, all these scenarios are important. You need to factor them into what you're doing. So we've seen instances where two writers will agree to write a script. Along the line, something happens, and they are coming back to say, "Oh, I should be paid for this and that because I have drafted some portion of the script. You are drafting the second portion." All of that. Okay, so try and seek legal advice, no matter how simple you think it is. Try to talk to people, seek legal advice, and all of that. Very important. Then we also have the issue of the right of adaptation. Uh, if I want to make a movie out of an existing material, maybe there's this fantastic movie out there, or there's this fantastic novel out there, and I feel like it's going to make a good film, or there's this amazing story, about somebody, and we just want to turn it into a movie. There was a time an actor reached out to me. They said they were going to use one of Wole Soyinka's books to create some sort of animated series, and they weren't going to seek for permission. I'm like, hey guys, don't try this. Wole Soyinka is respected, and his copyright is heavy. I mean, he has made a name for himself in the industry. He has done big things for himself. So you can't just wake up one day and say you want to create a series from his books, and you're not going about seeking rights of adaptation and permission to do all of that. So, and they were like, well, it's not something serious. We just want to create it, put it on social media. And I told them, I said, well, I will advise you, go and speak to his agents, speak to his people, talk to them. If you guys will need permission to do that, obtain permission in writing. Obtain permission in writing. And then if they are requesting for money, pay them. And this is where negotiation comes in. In fact, most of the time, if you have a good lawyer, you go with your lawyer to negotiate something. It's not all the time you have to pay money up front. Sometimes you do negotiations and you're like, oh, we are doing something. You sell the visions, then we're doing something big. We want to pick a part of the book. We want to use it to create this story. When we make this money, we can give you this. Everything is about negotiation. You don't get what you want, you get what you ask for. Right? So instead of just going ahead to say you want to adapt Wale Soyinka's book into a comic series and you say you just want to put it on Instagram or you just want to put it on social media, you can land yourself in trouble. You can get into trouble with that. So no matter how simple you think it is, and this is how people take advantage of others. Hear me. I mean, if you do something like that and you put it out there, they will come for you, especially when you know you didn't do it without permission. And when they come for you, they would bill you big time. And when they bill you big time, you can't pay them. They take you to court, and you know all these things, dragging yourselves to court, putting yourself in the mud, it's not worth it, right? So I always advise, just what's the worst that can happen? Just seek for permission. Seek for permission, write to them, let your lawyers write to them, negotiate these things. And sometimes these people might even just give you for free as an act of kindness and say, okay, go ahead and create a story from it. We would appreciate it. And you know. So what am I saying in essence? Right of adaptation, very important. Obtain permission before you use the copyrighted material to create your script or to develop your movie. So how do you obtain permission? You need the help of an IP and entertainment lawyer. What would the lawyer do for you? They would essentially determine if permission is needed. They will help you to identify the real owner and identify the types of rights involved. Okay. They will also contact the owner to negotiate whether payment is required, and you get your permission agreement in writing. That's the important part of that. Whatever is happening, you put it in writing. Okay. Put it down, let there be some sort of agreement signed by both parties that okay, we are using your copyrighted material to develop our script, and we're using it to develop and create our movie. Very important. If the material is in public domain, it means that the author's copyright has expired over the material. Okay, so once the material is already in public domain, it means that the right has been expired. Now it depends on the laws. Okay, so if you're using a copyrighted material that is from US, you have to look at their laws over there. Okay, in order to determine if you will go ahead or not. If you're here in Nigeria, the copyright material lasts for the entire year that the author lives. Okay. Now it also lasts for 70 years after the death of the author. So it means that after 70 years, the material will now be in public domain. Okay, so once a material is in public domain, you're free to take it up and you're free to use it. Okay, you're free to adapt it and you're free to use it to develop your movie. There's also the issue of among screenwriters, how do I sell my script? Do I need to sell my script or do I need to option it? Okay, so let me just explain that, in detail. Outright selling is really about selling your script for a fixed price. Okay, it's about saying, okay, I've written this script, I've developed it, and this is where owning your craft comes in. Nobody's going to purchase a script from a script writer who is not good or from a screenwriter who is not good at what you're doing. Okay, so this is where you need to sit down, learn the art, and you don't learn the art of screenwriting just by taking classes. You learn the art of screenwriting by reading. You learn the art of screenwriting by practicing. You watch movies, you practice, you read, you sit down. Okay, so maybe sometimes during the year we'll have a screenwriting competition for you guys, so you guys can practice and you guys can learn how to really, become a professional, because the people who are hot cake in town, the people who are selling their script in town are those who know their craft. They are those who know their craft. Okay, formatting is there, adaptation, structuring, it's a whole lot, right? So this is about owning your craft, okay? And we learned yesterday from Ozioma things in respect to the art of screenwriting. We learned from Taiwo too as well, you know, in respect to how to tell stories that sell, right? So I just want you to bear in mind that outright selling is about selling it for a fixed price. Okay, and if you want to sell it, you have to put in the work to ensure that it's attractive to people who want to buy it. Optioning is the second route. So optioning really is about selling the script at a fixed, period. Selling the script, I mean, at a defined price on a future date. So you're not selling it immediately. For option, you're not selling it immediately. You're selling it at a fixed price on a future date. So maybe 2 years from now, you're selling that script. So you must have had some sort of negotiation with the producer or with an executive producer, with studio house or distribution agency, and they're like, okay, and it happens this way. They will come and say, okay, we want to buy your script. Then you tell them this is the price, and they say, we at the moment we don't have people who are willing to invest in it. We're still looking for money for production. Production can be heavy. We're looking for money for production, especially when you want to pull out something with great production value. We are looking for money and all of that. And you say, okay, why not option? So there's an agreement in place that we will option this. You come and purchase it at a certain future date, maybe in the next 6 months. Okay, so they say, okay, let's quickly put together the money. Let's talk to executive producers. Let's talk to this person and that person. And you're like, okay, good. So that's how optioning works. It's an agreement to sell it as a future date. Now, the thing with optioning is that you, as a professional screenwriter, you'll be leaving your IP in stake for another 6 months or 2 years. So you just leave your IPS. And what if another person just comes around and they are willing to pay you something much more bigger, right? Much more bigger than what the other person, much more bigger than what the other person was going to pay you. So that's the issue with optioning. Please, can you hear me? I want to be sure that you guys can hear me in the chat.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Good. So that's the issue with optioning. So it's like you're dishing out your value, your IP value, and it's just there. And but what if somebody comes around and they say, "Oh, I like this. Let's do something with it," and you've already given it out. So that's the problem with the optioning. So that's why you see most screenwriters actually just selling it upfront. And some of you just sell your script for a very ridiculous price. I'm aware that somewhere in the UK or somewhere in the US they always do advocacy for screenwriters because they feel like you know some of the screenwriters really undermine the value that they bring to the table, especially along the value chain. You know, a lot of times we are just treated as if we are just writers alone. We just write and that's it. We pay you off and you're gone, right? So that's why it's important to own your craft and to develop and build yourself so that you'll be valuable in the industry. So what kinds of payments do you negotiate for under the option agreement, right? So there's the back end payment, which is very popular. After the release of the movie, you get a certain percentage of the net profit. So that's what they call the back end payment. So maybe after the movie has been released in theater or has been released in theater or has been released on what's it called on Netflix or maybe on Amazon Prime. So you get a certain percentage, right, of the net profits. Okay, so that's the back end payment. There's also the purchase price. I've spoken about that before, where studio houses or executive producers get to purchase the scripts. And I've had this scenario where a screenwriter and he's also a producer and he writes scripts. He reached out to me and he was like one big executive producer in the industry was going to, you know, they saw one of you ready, he give them a synopsis of one of his story ideas. And they're like, "Oh, fantastic. I love this." And they're like, okay, let's pay you off. And he was like, ah, what do you mean by paying me off? I mean, you can't just because he's also a producer, he's well known, but he has had this story idea and he has been looking for people to fund it for him. So when he eventually found this executive producer, the executive producer was like, let's just pay you off now. I mean, fantastic idea. Let's pay you off. She wasn't talking about credit. She wasn't talking about him receiving, some sort of back end payment because you can have. We'll talk about how to negotiate, as a screenwriter and as a producer, because you can negotiate these things. They weren't talking about what rights they were going to give him. She was just focused on let's just buy this thing and let's move on. And it's like, no, how would you just buy it and just move on? I mean, this is my story. I should be entitled to certain benefits, certain perks, certain compensation, and all of that. And that was how the thing died. You know, I don't think they've even spoken about it till now. So you see why it's important for you to really know your onions, and it's important for you to be able to negotiate. Have somebody that can negotiate on your behalf. If you're good at negotiating, that's fantastic. If you want to hire a lawyer to negotiate for you, fantastic. You're very good entertainment actor, fantastic. Okay, so that was how the story died. The executive producer was just going to pay the guy off, and the guy was like, "No way! I mean, this is my work. I should be entitled to tax. I should be able to receive back end payment. I should be able to receive compensation for this and that. And that's where all of this comes in terms of negotiation. So so I was speaking about the three types of payment. So another kind of payment is the initial option payment. Shall please remind me if I just go off because I know sometimes I can like to talk. So just keep me on check in terms of time.
All right.
So yeah, and another payment option is the the initial option payment paid to the producer, paid by the producer, I mean to the screenwriter. So that option, I've explained what option is about, what the option is agreement is about. So you can also negotiate that an initial option payment be made to you. So just to cover up for that time, if you're giving them an option of maybe 6 months or 7 months, and you know that the thing is going to be with them, just negotiate and give me an initial payment option. And then when you're about to redeem the option, then you can pay me another amount of money. Right? So these are all types of payment structure for your option agreement, especially when it comes to screenplay and scripts for movies. The interesting thing is that you can actually negotiate for all of this, right? Depending on how solid or skilled you are as a professional screenwriter. I've mentioned that before. So, what are the important things that should be in your option agreement? Things like your warranties, your contingencies, clauses, compensation clauses. I've mentioned that your payment and royalty clauses, your indemnity clause, all of that. So these are just some of it. There are a whole lot. Okay, so engaging a professional to help you with this is very important. Speak to people, engage professionals, talk to your lawyer. Okay, uh, you can even ask for more as well. If the studio is going to produce a sequel or television series based on your script, that happens a lot, and it's one of the cogent methods for monetizing your IP in the entertainment industry, sequels, remakes, and all of that. So if the studio is going to do something, because once you're negotiating, you see, the thing with this is that once you start negotiating, sorry, just a minute, please. Okay, so sorry about that, please. So yeah, I was talking about the fact that the thing about this is that once you start talking to producers, they're not going to tell you that they will make a sequel, because the movie has not entered the industry. The movie is not yet on Netflix, right? The story is not yet on Amazon Prime. Okay, so nobody would think of a sequel. But once the movie makes a big hit, they will not start talking. They will not start thinking of, okay, can we convert this to a series? Can we convert this to a sequel? That's where monetization and all of that will start coming into to play. But you see, the truth is, you as a screenwriter must be alert. Okay, you as a producer must be alert. There's how you can also earn from sequels and remakes. Okay, so it's left to you to negotiate for these things. It's left to you to reach out for these things, and it's left to you for you to make the best use of the IP that you have. Okay, so what are the legal issues, for production houses? Okay, so I would always advise that you approach your business as a business. Okay, approach what you're doing as a business, register your company. It depends on you. If you want to play big, if you really want to play big, then start to treat what you're doing as an institution, treat it as a business. Okay, so register your company, obtain tax identification, you do corporate compliances. I mean, once you start to engage investors, you start to talk to people across Africa to finance what you're doing, they will start to ask questions. They want to do due diligence. Who are these guys? What about? Let's check them. Legal due diligence. Let's do financial record checking. You've not been paying tax, or you've not been remitting tax, because there's a difference between paying and remitting. You don't have a financial statement. You're not doing audited statement of account. No record keeping. Nothing, nothing. They can't be confident in the work that you're doing as a producer or as a production house. They can't be confident, okay? So this is really about you putting yourself on the soft edge so that when the opportunity comes, you will actually be very, very ready, okay, for the opportunity that is coming, right? If you want to play big, then all of these things you need to start to think about it. If you're onboarding new partners, onboarding new investors, I mean, they will definitely do due diligence on your business, right? And your creative project. So before they can support you. In fact, in terms of even the movie itself, they want to see a lot of things with respect to your clearances, your copyright clearances, your clinching of title, are there trademark licensing clearances, music clearance, different things depending on the project, okay, that you're working on. Even some of these executive producers and studio houses, they also want to look at your product, the market you're playing in, that's the audience for your film, your talent lists, the risks involved, many, many other things. Okay, sorry, just a minute. Many, many other things, right? So I would always advise that these legal issues should be taken into consideration. Due diligence for your movie is also important. I mentioned that having a clean chain of title is important. I've spoken about the clean chain of title before now. I also spoke about deliverables, based on the kind of project that you're working on. Investors will want to see deliverables. They want to see things like your copyright search report, your cast and crew agreements, your budget. You know, how do you want to make money from this film? They want to see that too. What's the recoupment schedule like? Okay, are you taking a loan? Are you doing this? What are the loan and finance documents? etc. Okay, so in essence, in a nutshell, working with professionals on your project is the best investment that you can make, honestly, because they help you sort out everything while you just focus on creating. And I know that one of the major challenges that creatives have is that they cannot do the two at the same time. Creatives struggle with creating and at the same time maintaining the logistics, doing the work of an attorney, doing the work of a production assistant, doing the work of a production line manager. All of those things is very difficult to do at the same time. Okay, so invest in these things, they matter, and you will see that you'll be on your way to building the best, film empire that you've always wanted to build. Yeah. So I'm going to end there at the end. Thank you so much for listening. So I can take questions now. If there are questions, you can take questions now.
Okay, thank you, ma. Presently, no one has dropped in. Okay. So, Success said, as a screenwriter, how can I secure the rights to my script before pitching it to producers or directors, etc.? I mean, before sending it to anyone, how can I secure my rights?
So yeah, able to secure your rights to before you can speak to investors and all of that. To be honest with you, if you have a script, it's more like you actually want people to invest in that script so that that script can come to life. Okay. So the best thing you can do, because sometimes when you're talking to people, especially in the film industry, most of them don't like to sign NDA. NDA is what is called a non-disclosure agreement. It's an agreement between yourself and the other party that uh, please don't steal my storylines and all of that, you know. But the truth is, there are different ways to go about this. Some of them will sign the NDA. The NDA is that the NDA will show that, look, don't touch my storyline. I don't want to. My storyline is you taking my story and you're not producing my story just because you saw my story when I was pitching it. Okay. So some of them will sign, some of them will not sign, right? So what what we usually advise to do, what I think you can do in this scenario is to be as wise as much as you can. Okay, so try to do your research. It's not everybody that needs to hear your story. Okay, it's not everybody needs to know about what you do. You don't have to be in every pitch what's it called? The producers who are doing fantastically well today, they believe in themselves. So they do their work, hide their stories, their stories. They pitch it to the people that need to hear it. Once the story is great, they go and look for talent that will love because for you to attract talent to your movie, the talent must see themselves in it's the story that everybody's attracted to. The talent must see themselves in that story. And they must know there's something about this story that is gingering me to this story. Okay, so they see the storyline, they see the script, and they're like, wow, I must be a part of this. So it's about selling it strategically. It's not about talking to everybody in the industry about the work. The idea will spill out. And let me tell you something. We've seen scenarios in the industry where a person picks up another person's idea, and the idea is already on Netflix. The person has told the story. The person has told. How many people do you want to drag to court? And be realistic with fear. Why? Because you've spent a lot of time talking about the story to 100 people instead of strategically pitching the story to people that matter. So the producers who are doing well today, they go and look for people who are interested in that journey. They go and look for people who are interested in that kind of story. And once they see, wow, and then they pick it up and it becomes a movie, right? So in terms of securing your right, it's already a copyright. Once it's already written, it's already a copyright. Okay. So once it's already a copyright like that, you can also go to the NCC to obtain a copyright over it. That's protection over the idea. But that's not enough. I won't riddle you with necessary gist. That's not enough. You now need to strategically begin to for the people who can buy into the story. Gangs of Lagos. The Gangs of Lagos was just Jade who just said we are going to do something new. They wrote the story and they went to Amazon Prime and that was it. And they got people, the talent and all of that. So it's really about being strategic in the industry. That's what it is about. You have a story and you know that story is worth telling. Because stories are fickle. Then again, stories are fickle. Anybody can pick it and run with it. That's because they know that it will work. Okay, so again and again, we're still going back to the bottom line again and again. Have confidence in that script. look for the people that matter, right? Look for the people that will buy. Because I was telling somebody, the investors that will be interested in action will not be the same investors that will be interested in comedy or drama. You have to enter the industry and look at the people who love the stories you're telling. Look at the people who support the stories you're telling, build relationships, and go ahead and make your film out there. Another thing that I'm going to say again is that the way you tell your story is different from the way another person will tell your story. So if somebody picks your story and they say it and they tell the story, don't worry about that. Because the truth about the matter is the way you will tell your story is not the same way that person will tell their story. I can guarantee you. Now there's a friend of mine in the industry. He had a story idea, pitched it to a couple of people, and they picked the story idea and they, they, they made the story and it was on Netflix. When he saw the story, he was just laughing because he knew it was his idea. But the way they told the story is not exactly how he would have told the story. Because your stories are authentic to you. Your stories are unique to you. The way you will tell your story, not the same way another person will tell your story. And sometimes we see in the industry where we see two different kinds of stories overlapping. It's theft. Somebody has taken the story, somebody else. But the real person who knows the story, you will see the authenticity. And that's what Taiwo was saying yesterday when we was talking about stories that sell. Because it's coming from you. You can feel the authenticity, you can feel the vibe of the story. So, in a nutshell, you can go the route of NDAs. If you find investors who are signing NDAs with you, who are interested, who are willing to sign NDAs, why not sign NDAs? You can copyright it at NCC. But most importantly, smart selling is the rule of the game. Find people who love what you're doing. Find people who are interested in your story. Pitch it to them, it will fly. Find the talent who want to be a part of that story. Find the talent who wants to feature as that character in that story. It will fly, and you will do great things with your movie. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Ma. So from Silvio, he's asking, what is the average fee to sell a TV script and a cinema script, and how do you get your producers to agree to the fee?
In terms of selling your TV script, there's no average fee. There's no standard fee, so to say. Okay, it depends on the story. It depends on the people you're speaking to. It depends on how skilled you are and how well known you are in the industry. There are different factors. It depends on how sought after you are. It depends on how hot the story is. So there's no standard rate, so to say. Just build your craft, know what you're doing, believe in yourself, and look at your story and say, okay, how much is this story really worth? And you send. Then, if you want to do well in your area, especially in the area of screenwriting, ensure that you're rolling with professionals who are doing well in screenwriting. So if you want to do well in screenwriting, if you want to be able to sell, I know people in the US. I've not heard of in Nigeria because the way it is right here. But there are people in Hollywood who are selling their script for billions of dollars. Go and research those people, read about them. What are they doing? What are they doing that is different? How are they going about it? And that's how you steadily build your confidence and grow your craft. Okay.
Then there are two parts to the question. You said there is no definite fee, but you said, how do you get your producers to agree to the fee that you put out?
Oh, it's negotiation. How you get your producers to agree to the fee is negotiation. Know the value you're bringing to the table, negotiate for it. I said it before now that you don't get what you negotiate. What's even the word? You don't get what you want. You get what you ask for. So a want can just be a desire sitting in your heart. So you get what you ask for. And the truth of the matter is you literally have to be practicing it. If you don't want to get into production, if you want to be a badass screenwriter, there are people who are maybe just little bit of production, little bit of production. They are mostly writers, highly sought after. You want to do that, that's fantastic. Okay. But you need to gradually build. One person I would recommend you connect is Ozioma. cinema is badass. And building it, and she spoke yesterday. She has been building it gradually, gradually. So it's not a matter of you just come, you just start up with investors and you say, this is the price. It's a gradual journey. You write a story today, you get known in the industry, you get the credit. You write another story, you get known, you get the credit. You write another story, and you gradually build. As you're gradually building, you're gradually placing a value on that craft that you have, and then you now work with attorneys. We call them. I'm one of them. We also call them acquisition executives. They are skilled in acquisition process. They will negotiate your right for you in such a way that you will make money from merchandising, you make money from licensing, depending on how good your craft is. You will make money from sequels, you will make it from remakes, different ways to make money. So it's really about building the craft, right? It's really about working with entertainment attorneys to help you negotiate your rights, because the money really is tied to your rights, and the money is also tied to the production budget, the distribution chain line, and all of that. So it can sound very simple, but it's very technical in terms of how the attorney will sit down and begin to think 3 years to 4 years down the line to be able to say, oh, okay, this is how you can literally make money from this. This is how you can make money from that. And then when it comes to pitching as well, I've already mentioned that before. It's really about selling the value of the script to the right people. You have to get into the market, get the right people to sell your story. It's not everybody you'll be telling your stories to. When you get the right people, their ears will be open to listen to you. There are people that are interested in comedy. There are people that are interested in TV, TV scripts, and all of that. There are people that are interested in TV series and TV shows. There are people that are interested in action. You need to find your people, right? Attach a fantastic talent list to it. I mean, the truth of the matter is that the story is all that matters. I know that we want to do big things with big production values. We want to bring elite talent, but you have to start from where you are. If you have a fantastic story, you would attract the talent. I keep saying it, I want to feature in that story. So it's about the story. After the story, then it's about the talent. And then when you start to talk to the people who are interested, though, remember, I'm always seeing the people who need the story, the people who can buy into the idea. Don't just start telling the whole world that I have this story. That's not strategic selling. It's not. So go and find the people that will buy into the idea and start to sell the story, sell the emotions, sell the story. Even some of them will bring talent into the film for you, and they will buy into the film. So it's about being strategic. Being strategic. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ma. So the next question: what will be the easiest way to copyright my scripts?
It's very easy. You want to copyright your script, reach out to an attorney. So it must be in a fixed format. Okay? What you've written must be in a fixed format, and there are necessary procedures and applications at the copyright at the Nigerian Copyright Commission. But reach out to me, reach out to any attorney that you want to reach out to. And it's very easy. It's just for them to do the filings for you at CAC. But one thing is this: it must be in a fixed format. It must be in a fixed format. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I also have a question in regards to copyright of screenwriting. I know that for copyright, there's normally authorship and ownership. Is it possible to sell like your story and still retain the authorship in it?
Oh, I get what you're saying. There are two things. What I'm hearing you say is two things. You're selling the story, or you are selling certain rights in the story to people who are buying into the story. If you're selling your story, then it goes down to agreement. You can negotiate in the agreement that we are selling the story to you, okay, but you give me credits. That's what they call it in entertainment. I get credit for this, I get credit for that, or I get compensation for this, I get compensation for that. Authorship in the story really is about, you see, authorship in the story can be dynamic too as well. So also we can come from the angle of, is it a novel? I retain my authorship right if it's a novel. You understand? If I've written a novel and you want to make a movie out of the novel, my authorship right remains with me. But I'm giving you a part of that novel, which is called the right of adaptation, to adapt it into your motion picture. You get what I'm saying? So that's that for that. Then for the other parts, you can have a story and you can sell the rights in that story to different stakeholders buying into the film. Still, and yet every other right that wasn't given out will rest in your production company. So it's a rights game. So that's where all the contract will come in. And you see, a couple of producers will be reaching out to me. I made this movie. We want to turn it into a sequel. We want to do a remake. Please help us draft an agreement. We don't want to sell all our rights. We don't want to sell all our rights. And that's the gimmicks in it. We need a good IP acting entertainment attorney who understands the rights game. She can pick the rights that you will retain as the owner of that script, and she will take the rights that will be given out to other stakeholders, especially the film funders, the maybe distribution house or whatever, right? So usually negotiating, that's where the pin is, negotiating those rights. Because trust me, movies will keep making money for years. If that movie is on Netflix for 8 years, Netflix will keep making money from that movie. You will not even know that money, Netflix is making money from the movie. Even your producers, even the executive producers, they'll be receiving their own. But if you don't negotiate for some sort of compensation, some sort of back end payment at different stratas of the agreement, you won't see anything. Nothing will come to you because the agreement says it all. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Okay,
Awesome.
so from success, what does a fixed format mean?
Oh, the person who is trying to copyright your 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 story must be in Word document, MS. So that's the fixed format. It must be written down in a Word document. Once it's in a Word document, it's a fixed format. So it must be tangible. Once it's written down in a Word document, you print it out. So it's a fixed format. But the dynamics of what to be copyrighted is now between yourself and the entertainment artist. You don't have to sit down and look at it critically because there are certain procedures that Nigerian Copyright Commission would actually require you to do before you can copyright it. But in a fixed format, it's written down in MS4, you print it out. Once it's printed out, it's in a fixed format.
Okay. So the next question. Are there script acquisition agencies like literary agents and managers that manage screenwriters in Nollywood? And if there are, could you mention a few and the best approach?
They are unoperative. That's the word. They are unoperative. People don't really care about that strata of the value chain. They are not operative. I think there's the Screenwriters Guild of Nigeria. They're not doing much work. Maybe we'll run a poll to see if, because the truth about that is that when people want to get into that, you would also be doing that as some sort of management consulting something, where whenever screenwriters come in, whenever screenwriters come in, you take 10 percentage, they pay money for those services. Okay, so maybe if we run a poll, if we see that people require something like that, maybe we can start thinking about it at the African Creative Hub. But honestly speaking, they are not operative. The Screenwriters Guild of Nigeria, they're not operative. They're not operative. Okay, I think Babatunde Sharon, I think her network is acting up. Please confirm if you can still hear me. Confirm if you can still hear me, please.
I can hear you, ma. Sorry. Okay.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Annabelle says can still hear me. All right.
I don't know if there's any other question.
Okay, so somebody says I would love to connect with Ozioma. Fantastic. Ozioma is a badass screenwriter. Please connect with her. Yes. In the absence of any other question, our second speaker should be coming in.
Thank you, ma, for this session. It was very educative and very enlightening. And it was very enlightening, and I'm sure that we all okay. So Sylvia is asking that how do we connect with Ozioma?
Yeah, she's on Instagram. Go to my Instagram handle. She's Ozioma Ogbaji too on Instagram. Just go there, type Ozioma Ogbaji. Then when you're speaking to her, just say you are from African Creative Org, that that you're from IP Business Capital or African Creative Org, the recent program that she just spoke in. So it's easier for her to answer you than just going in like that to just say,
Okay.
uh, so you can have access through us. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your time
Thank you,
here
Sharon.
and for speaking to us.
I've left a message for you on WhatsApp, Sharon. Okay, so while we wait for Sharon to bring in our next speaker, okay, so while we wait for Sharon to
Okay. So we're waiting for our next speaker. So while we're waiting, I think can just saying something to the chat box. Any contribution that you have from the first session? What was the part of the first session that really took to you, that you really understood, that was the best from this session that you understand? We want to know so that everybody can hear from you and what you gained from it. For me, I think what I understood the most from the first session is the fact that there are different investors, and you should know the kind of investors that you're pitching your story to. So you should know the kind of investors that you're going to pitch your comedy to, you're going to pitch your tragic story to, you're going to pitch your like different, you should know the kind of investors that you're going to meet to sell out your story. And I also understood that agreements are very important for in like this trying to sell your story. Your agreements are very important. You have to make sure that you negotiate well, and you also put in agreements that will benefit you and will protect your rights as the screenwriter. So we're also waiting for your own, you know, what you learned from the first session while we're waiting for our second speaker for today.
So I just talked to our second speaker now. He's coming on board soonest. He's coming on board soonest. Let's take our time to drop our highlights. What stood out to you during the last conversation, during the last section? What would you start doing right? That's very important. Would you start doing right? What would you start doing right? So let's hear your thoughts in the chat box. Put down your thoughts. Let's hear your thoughts in the chat box.
Okay, so success is saying that the whole session was great, and I learned new terms like rights of adaptation, clean chain of title, etc. among other things. That's very good to hear that this session, enlightened you. So we're still waiting for others. Put out your highlights on what you gained from this session.
So apologies, guys. It's coming in soon. Yeah, pretty much soon. So the chat box is literally very quiet. I mean, what's happening? Did we learn something during the last? Hi, Charles. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, I can hear you. Okay, your
Yeah,
camera
good
is on.
afternoon.
Good
Yeah.
afternoon.
Okay. Hi.
Okay, so for this next session, we're going to be talking about writing for TV series, and our speaker today is going to be Charles Ugozo. Permit me if I didn't pronounce it right. So Charles is passionate about taking ideas and turning them into thrilling stories. He's a multidisciplinary creative with over 5 years of experience as a storyteller, scriptwriter, PR, and communications expert and marketer. Beyond an educational background in creative arts and a specialty in communications, Charles has helped brands and individuals to discover their voices, share their stories, and engage their audience through the power of storytelling. So we're super grateful to have you here today.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
joining.
Thank you. So, do we just start right away or
Yes, we can start.
yeah, okay. So, I was going to prepare a slide. Um so I think I have 1 hour for this session, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'll just start off then. Let me see if I can share my screen. I was working on something, and let's hope it goes well. My screen is visible, yes.
No, it isn't.
Okay, so for you to be able to share your screen, Charles, there's a button. If you once you're inside the studio, we have like about six round buttons just
Yes,
in it.
I
So
I
there's
have.
a
Uh, okay,
so
go
there's a
ahead.
particular round button in between. Once you click on it, it tells you
Yeah,
share
yeah,
your screen. Have you seen the button?
yeah. I have actually, and like I've clicked on it and
Okay.
stuff, and it should be sharing. It's saying it's sharing.
So so the thing
So
is once you click on it, you will go to entire screen. Go to entire screen.
okay,
Yes. Click on entire screen.
yeah,
Then click on your, it's going to give you like a short view of your entire desktop. Click on it.
yeah,
Then click on share.
yep. Same thing. It's shared, as in like I can see it sharing, and anyway, um, I don't know. It has there's a tiny section of this this thing where it has the screen I'm sharing,
Okay, let
where
me
it
let me
has the screen I'm sharing,
let me try to share my screen. Let me see. There's
and so it's
something.
like I can see that it's supposed to be sharing, but it's not showing you guys what it's sharing.
So can you see my
Yeah,
screen?
so I can see yours. I
I
don't,
can
I
see
don't know
Oh.
I don't know
So
what's up.
the thing is you are already in. So I can see where the challenge is. It's already showing you the view of your desktop. So you need to
Yeah,
leave your desktop, and then go to your slide. So you can just minimize your desktop itself, then go to your slide.
Um, okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I'll just have to do this without sharing.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry, did you click
Yeah.
on the, because I think for the there's a share option there.
Yeah, there's a share option. I've kind of used Rich.
He has passed that side. He's saying
Oh, okay.
something else now. Okay, just go ahead. Maybe you'll share, we'll get the presentation slides from you and then we'll share with members of our community.
All right. So writing for TV. Let me just do kind of like a more formal introduction or an informal introduction. Um, so I've written screenplays for quite a number of years now, and I would say for 3 years I've been involved in writing for TV. I've had stuff from as Start Times to African Magic Showcase, and I'm currently working on something for Netflix, and then we hope to like expand from there. So for I think there's a certain peculiarity to writing normal screenplays, and by normal I mean screenplays for feature and um, for other platforms, as compared to writing for television. And I think that's why that this is like a special topic, and that's why I'm not just talking about screenwriting generally. Um, so so really, what is writing for TV? Um, I had like bullet points for what's writing for TV, for what we'll talk about, like what's writing for TV, why is it different from other forms, and what to generally consider when writing for TV. And I'll kind of round it up with how newbies can get into TV writing and where they can get started for Nigerians. Well, from my experience and from what I think people should do. So essentially, TV writing is TV writing is the process that goes into creating story for and scripting episodes for a TV show or a TV series, as people commonly call it. Of course, this could be a sitcom, could be a romantic soap opera, could be a documentary, a true crime show, and like several forms of TV drama. And yeah, basically, a sitcom is a situational comedy, which is what you have in maybe The Johnsons, Jennifer's Diary, Flatmates, and all the ones that you know. For people who are more used to Western drama, you have Friends, you have iCarly, you have all of that TV show, all of that comedy TV. So you have that. You have soap operas. You have the Telemundos and the um, all the other romantic things that people watch. And then we have drama, you have crime shows, you had there's Tinsel, there's Riona, Ajocha, and all that. So those are like TV shows, and it's each of these TV shows have a particular way you approach them, have a particular way you approach them, and how to and how you are going to execute them, basically. And usually these TV shows are on streaming platforms, paid TV, TV stations, and all that. So that's just TV writing, unlike um, feature films that are going to either go to cinema or just are just one-off um, shows on TV. TV shows actually have to keep going, and so because of that nature of them continuing, of them expanding for several minutes
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, when
Um,
yes, I can hear you also.
all right then. So I was basically saying, yeah. So I was basically at saying that TV shows are, so you have shows that run as long as several hundreds of hours of viewing time and all that, and that's what makes them different from regular feature films and all that, because for the fact that they have to keep going, there are certain techniques that you have to employ for them to still be interesting over the long period of say 20, 30 episodes, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, and all that. And that's why knowing what TV writing entails is important, aside from the fact that, yeah, there's a little bit more money in that, since you're paid per episode and per script and per everything. So yeah, how is it different from these feature films? You have that. So it's it's quite similar in terms of formatting, in the fact that you have to actually tell a good story, in the fact that you have to kind of keep it going. Um, you have to consistently tell a good story for people to be glued to the screen. All right, but so in terms of formatting, in terms of story technique, in terms of the basic rule of thumbs, how you should actually approach story and all that, those are similar. But for TV writing, there's certain rules, there's certain build up and payoff that you have to put for the show to actually make sense. And this starts with knowing what kind of story you want to tell and knowing where you want to take the story. And there's what they call the series arc. So the series arc is where you start the story off and where you see it ending. So you have to, like, okay, these characters start at so place. This meet these four characters, for instance, at so place, and then we want them to end with them finding this out or with them discovering this thing. I'll give you a show like um, what show can I use? I don't want to say Friends, because Friends is, you look like you know about Friends, but I don't know if everyone knows about Friends. Um, so yeah, maybe I should just use Friends. So this series is about um, a group of friends. I think five friends: Monica, Chandler, Phoebe, Joey, and this guy. I can't remember his name now. So five friends who live in the same apartment in New York, and it starts them off with at different stages of their life. And this series arc, they start off like maybe one is doing good in his career. Rachel came back from just walked out of a marriage. This one just each of them are at a different stage in their lives anyway, and you want that series to end when they are all going their separate ways. Now, there are certain things that the characters that you have to follow for you to keep viewers engaged in their story. You have to make them care enough to want to follow this story, to want to see where these characters are going. For a feature film, you're just going to maybe take two characters, for instance, a lead and a supporting, and then you say, okay, this is their problem, this is what they're trying to solve, and then you follow them over a course of 90 minutes, 2 hours, and you see them solve their problem. For a feature film, you now have to kind of follow each character. They have to have a compelling story, and then you have to see each character that comes into that story world. Um, you have to see them go to see them change somewhat. You have to see their character arc. So you have the series arc for how the series is going to end, and then you have the character arc for how the characters are going to end, come out of their trouble and everything. And that's where some people kind of have difficulty. You just want to start a story and you just want it to end somehow and all that. But for you to actually tell like a really good story, you have to like see it through. No, you have what they call a story Bible. And in that story Bible, you have your characters, you have what each of their journey is, you have what they all want, you have where they are all going, and then you have each of those characters building that story. So yeah, um, you don't do that much work for a feature film, and that's what kind of where the difference is in terms of how you tell the story. So stuff to consider when writing for TV, you have to start off with something compelling that the audience wants to see through. Um, One of my favorite TV series is Ozark. So Ozark started with this guy who, with a guy named Marty, who kind of had to. He's been in this drug peddling business for a while, drug money laundering business, and um, in the first episode, his friend has done something horrible. He has stolen from the cartel, and the cartel wants to kill all of them because they think he's part of it. And so Maddy, the guy has to literally beg for his life. He has to say, okay, he promises to launder a ridiculous amount of money, move his family out of the city and go to one remote place and launder a ridiculous amount of money for the cartel. And that's what starts off the series. So you want to see how this guy is going to save his family from being killed by the cartel. And at least for the next 5 episodes, you're like, you want to see how this happens. You want to see how he eventually moves out of town. You want to see how he's eventually going to meet this ridiculous quota he has made for himself. You want to see him not get killed. While that is good, you have to remember that that is only going to sustain you for a few episodes. You have to continuously create conflict. So he has made this promise. There has to be countless obstacles to stop him from receiving this, from actually executing this promise. There has to be problems upon problems upon problems, and then that's what is going to keep people interested in the series. For to do that, I actually learned my first writing workshop. I actually learned what about the Dan Harmon story cycle, or Dan Harmon story circle structure, whatever you choose to call it. I wish I could share my screen now, so you see what it looks like. Well, if you could Google and stuff, you could see, um, what the story circle looks like. So it basically has characters who start off wanting something, and if you are a screenwriter and a storyteller, you know that your stories are full of characters. The most essential ingredients in building characters is them wanting something. So you have your characters, a character that wants something. I don't know what it is. As you as a human being, every day you wake up, there's something you actually want. There's something to either you want to go to work, for instance. This character wakes up, wants to go from point A to point B. That's what he wants. And this character, for a feature film, this character will set off. Yeah, there will be a few obstacles that is going to get it. He overcomes these obstacles, goes through a process of transformation or what have you, and then solves his problem and goes. But for a TV series, this character has to go through a cycle and then come back to where they started off. So this character starts off wanting to go to work, for instance, and then finds out he or she doesn't have money. And to get money, this character from maybe where a tip jar, for instance, where they keep money. And in the process of stealing, the character breaks something. And before the character can successfully get away with the theft, and so they broke. And then they spend the money that they took out of the jar to fix what they broke, and then they are back at square one. And so it's usually, this is more prominent in sitcoms. So you have characters who want to get out of their situation, and then they get something, they do something they shouldn't normally do to get it. They get it, and then they have to pay the back for what they did, and then they end up back in what, for Friends. If you watch the series, you see that they kept going in that circle. Some episodes have the story move forward, but this episode, Joey, for instance, gets an audition, very positive about it, but for the audition to be successful, he has to lie that he can speak Spanish, and so he has gotten the role in Spanish. He has entered and everything. I think everything is going fine, but now he has to learn how to speak Spanish because they give him a Spanish script. So he's going to go through the process of trying to learn Spanish, and then he's going to mess things up for himself, and then he's going to come back to square one. He doesn't. They fire him because they find out he can't speak Spanish, and then he's back to square one. He didn't get the job. He didn't speak Spanish, and then you're all back to all that. So a character starts out wanting something, he does something to get it, and gets it at a cost, sets out to fix it, and then falls back to where they started. Um, that's the Dan Harmon story cycle, and it's kind of has the characters. It kind of has the series, doesn't conclude the story. Basically, you have so many series that, or so many TV shows that you see do not end in some kind of definite conclusion. They can still be carried forward either through specific characters or through the entire thing. Even Game of Thrones, for people who saw Game of Thrones, at the end of each season, they kind of move one step. The series could end at the end of that season, but there's always more. You kind of do not totally tie it all up. There's still the chance of another episode, and you want to see the next season. Um, Through a technique called cliffhangers. And later on, maybe I'll just share a few, like, before we round up and everything, share a few like techniques for keeping the series going. But there's what they call cliffhangers that comes at the end of each episode. Um, it comes in between the episode, but at the end of each episode, there's always something that makes you want to see the next one. A character opens a door and then sees something that is about to jump out of him, and then they end the episode there, and you're like, what was that they saw? You want to go and watch the next episode. And so in your writing, in TV writing, you don't have to do that for film because of course the next scene has got to happen, yeah. But for TV, you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to give them something to make them want to see the next episode. You have to give them something that makes them want to click. If it's on Netflix, if it's on Amazon and everything, you want to click, go to next episode. If you don't do that, then they're just going to click away. They're just going to watch the first episode. If you end all your story in one episode, they're going to watch it and they're going to be like, yeah, well, that's everything. So I can log out now. They don't need to see the episode. So if you do that at the end of your series, at the end of your season, they're not going to watch the next season because there's nothing you want to do. A series that did that for me was One of Us is Lying. One of Us is Lying had a group of friends who were on detention, and then one of them died. And the first episode kind of ends with where someone that they mutually hated, Simon, dies. And so everybody in that detention, there are 5 of you, and one of you have died. Or there were 6, and then one of them died. And then it's like, so who killed him, basically? And so the next episode, you are wondering, you want to see, okay, how people, since none of them, each of them are saying they didn't kill him, so what happened? You want to watch the next episode. And through all of that, through figuring out what happened, who killed him, how the person got in to kill him, you now get to the end of that series after they figured out that the guy, okay, so he dies and then he's still sending texts to them. His number is still sending texts, he's still revealing secrets and all that. And everybody's wondering, how did this guy die? What happened? How come he's still sending texts? Who is still doing this to us? So somebody killed him, and someone is using his device to send text. And so you figure that out. And at the end of the episode, they seem like they catch the killer. At the end of the series or the season, they seem like they catch the killer. Is this person that killed him? Is this person that was with his phone? And is this and that? And then when you think that everything is peaceful and everything, you now see somebody still send them a text with this guy's number. And you're like, wait, but we've caught the person, we've finished this whole thing. So who is still sending text? And then they end the season there, and you're like, okay, I have to watch season two because I need to know who is doing this. The film could have ended without that last cliffhanger, and everybody would have been fine, but it didn't. So that's what TV writing has to do for you. You have to work your story in such a way that it keeps the audience wanting to watch. You do that for feature film, but it's more detailed, and you don't have the luxury of time. You have series that are just 30 minutes looks like a lot of time, but compared to an hour, 30 minutes feature film, 30 minutes has you setting up your character, telling them what they want, letting them go out for it, and then you have to do that in 30 minutes and set up for another 30 minutes. So it's a lot of it demands a lot. So that demands a lot more than feature film. Um for another thing to consider when writing for TV is your plot development, how your progresses into the other. Some people, I've seen it a lot in a lot of TV shows. Some people do not set up very well, and so the show is just dull for maybe the first 3, 4 episodes. And you're like, people set it up very well. You set up your story world. You just basically need to have to see what happens. So you put your characters in situations where they shouldn't normally be, and this kind of sets it up for you. You carry a simple person, a simple everyday person, and then throw the person into so much problem that you have to the story has to develop from there. You see them turning into a different version of themselves. At the beginning of Ozark, the main character couldn't bear to see somebody being killed, but at the end of Ozark, he was willing to kill people for for to save himself. And so the story has to be built up from there. There has to be challenge after challenge after challenge, and then the plot just kind of thickens, and you see it develop. For that plot development, there's the character arcs and series arc, like I talked about, and that's what you have to be mindful of, how your story is developing. You don't just jump. Okay, I see this. This is the next step in this character's journey, and then you just jump to that place. You have to see what their motivations are, what pushes them to become who they are going to be at the end of the day. Um, and yes, you can do this by really developing your character and really examining what they want and giving them the challenges that just stop them from getting it. You have a character that is desperate to make a million, but for whatever reason, millionaire will save the dying loved one, which is the most cliche story. Um, and so that dying loved one has to be dying. There cannot be any excuses. The character cannot afford to ignore this problem. Character has to do things, and maybe there's now a legit way. Okay, if they do this, they get the money. There's a legit way, and then something goes wrong, making the way illegal, and then the character just does illegal after illegal, and then until they find themselves in just a mess, and then you clean that up. Your story has developed, and you have a good plot. Thirdly, third of four things, you have to consider your audience and your platform, who you are writing for, and how best they relate to your story, or how best they are going to tell this story. So your audience, are you writing for a teenage audience? Are you writing for an adult audience? Where are you writing for? What locality? Is it Nigerian? Is it African? Is it Western and all that? If you're writing for an African audience, there are some things that just wouldn't fly. Um, either by law or by, in Nigeria now, make you won't be successful in writing positive things about gay people, for instance, because of course they are going to ban your series. It's not going to be like socially accepted and all that, unless you are writing and you're criticizing them, or you're saying, okay, this person is being punished because they are gay. The audience will kind of accept it more because, of course, we're in Africa and we're in Nigeria and everything, and just do the whole battle and everything. But for a Western audience, it's fine. People want to see the romance, the everything, and it will work. You have to be careful what kind of audience you're writing for and how they are going to perceive your story. Because even when you are pitching this to platforms and all that, they are going to want to see the potential of the series, whether it's going to be accepted by people or rejected. And that's another thing. The platform, where are you writing it? Is it for YouTube? There's a different attention span for each platform. Um, if you're writing for YouTube, then there are going to be ads and there are going to be this. If you're writing for DSTV, you know, like each 15 minutes, there's going to be an ad break or something like that. And so you have to write your 15 minutes. You want the audience to not change the channel, because if in 15 minutes you don't set up something good, you don't give them something to hope for, by the time an advert comes on, they might switch to another channel and that's the end of your show. If it's for Netflix, there are no ads, but you know you have to like keep the show going. If not, after the end of that episode, they can forget your show. So you have to be mindful of the platform. If it's YouTube as well, yeah, there are ads and it might break your stuff. You kind of have to pay attention to what your audience and where your what your platform is, what your audience wants, and where your audience are watching your show and all that. Another thing to consider is the production quality, which is the last thing on my list. The production quality, what they are willing to invest in production. You're not going to pitch cars getting blown up and helicopters flying for maybe an Iroko TV. You're not going to even write it for a normal Africa Magic Showcase production, because, of course, they don't have that fund. You can afford to do that for maybe an Amazon series because they are willing to invest that much in doing a game show like that. But for a for a low budget, so you have to consider what your production is and edit your story or create your story around what is achievable. Yeah, it's good to dream big, but not in TV shows, because you might dream big and your dream is being chopped off by executives and directors and all that, and that won't be good for you. So consider what your production quality is, what can be achieved and what cannot be achieved. And yeah, for me, those are the key things I consider when I'm about to pitch a show or when I'm writing for the TV show. The character, the story, the plot develop. The story is different from plot development. So the story is what you're trying to tell and if it's even relevant. The plot development is how your story progresses. The audience and the platform is where your story is being displayed, and how and where it is going to relate to the audience. And then the production, how much money is being put into this thing. So to round up, I'll just talk briefly about how you can get into TV writing in Nigeria for anybody who might be asking. So TV writing is, from what I've discovered, I wouldn't want to say there are cliques. People feel like there are cliques and everything, but is it's the same with every industry. Yeah, you have to network, you have to get into writers' rooms and all that. Writers' rooms are where they bring a group of people together, group of writers, put a story, they chop it off, they brainstorm ideas and all that. It could go on for days, for weeks, for months even. So a writer's room is essential for TV writing, because that's where episodes are developed, stories are created, characters. Because there are shows where you work with as many as 15 to 20 characters, and one person can simply not just live so many lives. You can write a feature film because you can sit down and imagine the lives of maybe at most five characters, five relevant characters. But for a TV show, you are basically working with about 15 to 20 characters who are doing so many different things, whose stories may not even be connected and all that. Um, so you have to get into a writer's room. And one of the best ways to do that, how you can get into TV writing is one, either you pitch a show, you put together a show, you say these are the characters, this is the plot, this is what each episode is going to look like. You prepare a pitch deck, you reach out to production houses or you reach out to a producer and say, see, I have this idea for a great show, that I really think you'll be interested in. Can I send a synopsis? Can I send a some people won't accept treatments because it's like they don't want the stress of reading. So, but if you give them a good synopsis, um, a couple moves into a house for the first time, and then they discover a dead body, and then the police is on their case. They want to ask you, okay, so what happens? How is this going to go down? Whose dead body is it? Who killed the person? And all that. They have more questions. Okay, send us a treatment. Send you a treatment, or you send them a treatment, and then they look at it and say, oh wow, this can actually run into several episodes, and then you have a TV writing gig. If you don't want to pitch a show, if that's too big for you, you want to just get into a writer's room, same thing. Reach out to people. There's no harm in not reaching out to people. There's TV shows all the time. You watch Netflix series, you watch DSTV series. There's the credits that roll. You see people who the writers is what I did when I was starting off anyway. Um, through their credits and kind of it's a very small network with the access you have through social media and all that. You can easily slide into DMs. Oh, I watched this show that you wrote. It's really great stuff and all that. Get to know them. Don't just jump in and say, "Come and put me in a writer's room." You get to know them. You say, "Oh, it's a great show. Um, I like what you do. I'm really looking to get into TV writing and all that." Either you're asking for a mentorship or you're not going to ask them, read my screenplay. It's going to be in their inbox for days and months and weeks, and they're not going to read it. So you has to get them interested. I really like what you did. I'm interested in this part, and I'm interested in really getting to know more about this. And before you know, and if they're open to it, I'm not saying everybody will, but if they're open to it, you are likely to get a send me what you've written before, let me see. And then they see it, and then next time there's a writing room, like they want to develop new writers. Because I'm telling you, in Nigeria right now, there's a lot of series and TV shows that they are looking for writers, and they keep recycling writers. Almost every African magic show you see, if you really watch, you see maybe the same crop of writers. So they need new writers. And yes, they're working with experience. They need people who are already used to being in a writer's room and can share stories and all that. But then they're also open to like bringing people up because people go out of business here. People change career paths. People, um, there's just so many shows that one person is not just going to be able to keep up. So yeah, they're looking for new writers. So you send your stuff, you look at it when there's an opportunity, and then look out for opportunities as well. Look out for people who say, okay, there's this workshop. If you go to a workshop like this, you can meet new writers and say, okay, see, I kind of want to get into this industry. I would like you to introduce me to a few people. That's one way, networking. And there's also the um, sharing your work. Let people know what you do. Let people know how you do what you do. Social media and all that is out there for you. Um, and lastly, that's where newbies can start. For newbies, for people who have not been into TV writing before, who have not even been into screenwriting before, it's basically just put yourself out there. Writing is on like music, on like dancing, or like acting, where you can record monologues and people see you, where people kind of like writing is mostly private. You're not going to carry your laptop or just send file randomly to anybody, and people are not likely to read the scripts that they see online. But the funny thing is, um, you have to find a way of sharing what you do, sharing with family and friends. Let people know that you're a screenwriter. There are a lot of people who say they are into screenwriting or they are into writing who do not have any stuff on social media about them writing. They don't have any. It's just the only people that call them are people maybe that know them from school and stuff that have seen stumbled on their work. But the more you share about yourself, the more you put it on your profile, the more you share content about it. I personally am still trying to do a lot of that when it comes to sharing content and all that. And that's how you get started. Um, and yeah, that's it for me. TV writing is a crazy world. It's stressful when you actually get into it. One day you will get into your first writer's room and it will be the start of your problems. But yeah, um, if it's something you feel fulfilled doing, then it's something I recommend you go for. Yeah, so that's it for me. Thanks for coming to my TED talk.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm open for questions and other things.
Thank you very
And
much for this enlightening. Thank you for this session. So I don't know if there are questions. If you have any question, you can just send it in the chat box so that I can answer them. But I want to ask, you're talking about cliffhangers and like writing the suspense for like at the end of seasons and all. So are there like factors or things that you put in mind when like trying to put this suspense at the end? Because I don't know, like let me use I'm not trying to bash, but let me use something like Z Word as an example. Like there are very expected things that we expect that happens at the end of these films. We know that they are going to say that somebody died or somebody died and came back again, or like very things that they always do over and over again. And also it's not
yeah,
a suspense again. Like are there things that you a writer put in mind when you're trying to write?
yeah. So you have to be quite careful of cliches and things that people are just so used to that it wouldn't affect them anymore. Like, of course, this dying and coming back to life. You thought somebody was dead, and that's why I like Game of Thrones. Once somebody died, the person died. You're not coming back to think that the person is anything, unless Jon Snow. And Jon Snow came back because there was a public outrage. Everybody was like, "Nah, he can't die." And like it really literally trended on Twitter, and the writers had to sit down and say, "Okay, we have to bring Jon Snow back somehow." But usually they will just kill somebody and you've forgotten about the person. You have to be bold enough to tell stories like that. And then you have to like also um find points in your story where it feels like there is relevant information to give. So and then it's unique to each story. So this man, imagine this man, for instance, has been with his wife for 9 years. They've been trying to have a child. they've not been able to, and wife has been thinking, and then finally she finally gets pregnant, and then you find out that he's now rude to her and insisting that the child, like, he should be better to her because the child is his and she's having his child and everything. And then at the end of maybe the episode, you find, or you show, maybe accept his um, capacity to give birth. And so at that point, you realize that, okay, so this woman's boldness and all these are lies and everything is actually not true, because yeah, he can't even like get her pregnant. So who is the father of her child? Who has she been sleeping with and all that? And for that story, that could be where you kind of have a cliff. You've seen that he's unable to give birth to a child, and so it explains why he has been acting this way. But you will now want to know who the father of the child is, where where the father, where the woman got pregnant from, who she has been having an affair with. There's a whole lot of questions. And then that's just one character. So if you have like several characters and you have each of them going through something, somebody needs money and then he walks into his room and then there's a bag of money under the bed and stuff. You want to know, is he going to take the money? Or you saw where a a ritualist kept jazz and then you see somebody going there and is about to step on it, and then you're like, just in the world of your story, find moments where there are questions to be answered and kind of end it there. So it's like you are not giving the answers to those questions. You have to you have to go to the next episode to find the answers to that question. It's like somebody talking mid sentence and then just turns, and then the phone goes off. You like kind of have to call the person back because that gist you were giving me was hot. I can't I can't move on without hearing the rest of this story. You're in a bus, somebody is giving a very important gist, and then it reaches your bus stop, and you're like, I can't come down because I have to see the end of this story. So you find moments in your story, and it has to do with good storytelling. So you have to be able to tell a story in a way that the audience wants to hear more. The people around, the people listening want to hear more about. Is that my screen?
It looks
At
like
the end of my talk, that for what reason?
like your skin is reshaded now. I can see your screen.
I don't know. I don't know what I clicked. I don't know what I clicked that is showing my screen. Anyway,
We are all getting to master the platform. It's a new platform as well. We stream. So we're all
all
learning.
right. Yeah. So so find moments in your story that does that for you. And one thing that helped me to do that is listening to my African mother tell stories. Mothers know how to tell stories, or parents know how to tell stories, and they will build it up so well for you that you're like, do you remember that person in church that used to do this and used to do that? And um, and then after they've built the context for you, they now tell you, the person died though. And then you're like, oh yeah, give me the rest of this story now. Or give me what's up, how did the person die? What did imagine if they ended the conversation there and just walked away. You're like, mommy, you have you have made me care about this person, and then you've told me that the person is dead. What next? So that's how you should tell stories. Make your audience care about the story, and then leave them with the questions. So you made me care. What happened to the person? Did the person die? This person was just shot at the end of this episode. This person I care so much about that looks like the person cannot leave this series. How far? Give us more. And then that's how you create cliffhangers. And for me, that's what works.
Okay, so if you have any question, please put in the chat box. So I know that there's somebody here. I might be wrong, but I kind of feel like there's somebody here that has a question in terms of how do I how do I get into this community of writers? So I know you mentioned something like writers room, all of that. So how do you position yourself in such a way that you really now enter into communities of, you get into all these writing communities, or you're being invited into a writer's room where you have the opportunity to interact with all writers and to learn and grow
Okay.
as well.
For me, I would use personal experience. There's um action that is kind of opening up now, but I'll use personal experience first. The
Okay.
first writers' room I was in was with Chrissy Hidero for a show called Man Pikin. That's on African Magic. And oh no, that was not the first. I think that was the first major writers' room. First one I was in was when I was in university. The screenwriting lecturer took us into that. But apart from that, the first one I was in was through this guy, and it was because I attended. So there's this African International Film Festival. They usually had workshops for screenwriters, for
Yeah.
filmmakers, and all that. So this was in 2019. I I didn't go to serve to NYSC service that time because I wanted to attend the workshop. I was so excited about it. And I got into this workshop and he taught us about screenwriting and everything. And then generally I just contributed. I was not loud, so I didn't expect. My intention was to learn from him, so I didn't expect like to maybe get into his writer's room. And so I was just there to learn. And weeks after I had left the workshop and everything, I got a call that he was having some show and all that, and he was trying to work with new writers, like discover new
Okay.
writers and everything, give them an opportunity. And he asked me if I was available, and yeah, I came through and everything. So it was just basically I was in that writers workshop. I met other writers apart from him. I kind of socialized, kind of networked and everything. So look out for opportunities where that writers are going to be at. And the one that I know that there's this page on Instagram, if you search the writersroom.ng, it's was founded by Nicole Asinugo. She's the one that wrote Living in Bondage. Um, and that won the MVC and all that. So she started this community for writers, for screenwriters in Nigeria. It's been low for a while. It's been inactive for a while, for a while, but yeah, she's trying to pick it up again and everything. Those are the kind of communities you should look out for. And people share a lot of stuff. There's the stuff that Jade Osiberu is doing right now about for filmmakers and stuff. If you go to our page or if you go to Grill Studios, you will find it there. You have to search. It's not just going to land on your table. You have to search for it. There's also film festivals. There's Film Rats Club. They are doing a festival right now where you can meet filmmakers and writers. It's a community. People share a lot of stuff all the time about this thing. If you are in enough people, you don't have to be in their DMs. Follow, have a list of writers. There are a list of top writers in Nigeria. There's Victor Agawa, there's Ifeanyi Chidi Barbara, there's just watch TSTV shows, Riona Ajoche, look at the credits for writing, find them on social media, find the people they connect with, and then you are good to go. You have kind of like a community, and um you can have kind of like these people, and then you can now find out what they're sharing with each other, and before you know it, you're put onto something, and then reach out to people. That's basically nothing's going to land on your desk just like that. You have to reach out and get what you want. So that's it for me.
In addition to
Does
what
that
Okay.
kind of answer
Charles
the
just
question?
said, you can also join. Uh, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, 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 I can
Yeah.
hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
awesome. So
exactly.
Charles, in addition to what Charles said, you can also join our community for African screenwriters as well. Yes, so we
Yeah.
have a community for African screenwriters. Currently, it's a large community. We have people from across Africa, right?
Yeah.
Nigeria, Uganda, South Africa. You can also join us. We are a
So
community that exists to actually help you grow and develop your craft. So from time to time, when we have a trainings, right? But that's not enough. I always say beyond the trainings, beyond the opportunity to actually be in the midst of people, and you also need to reach out, like Charles was saying. So you now need to, after the training, you now need to reach out to people and start collaborating, right? You need to start to work on your craft. I remember Charles also mentioned that he got the opportunity to join a platform after attending a program, and then he started
yeah.
to write, So beyond just joining a platform, start to collaborate. And that's what we exist for. You can join our platform, you can fish out people you can collaborate with and start to write those
And start.
fantastic stories that you have in
Yeah.
your head, right? So that's really what this is about. So beyond just taking the trainings and the classes, reach out to people, collaborate, and then start, doing what you've always intended and wanted to do. Okay,
And
so
it
at
is, it is communities like this, like yours, where you have many screenwriters in the same place. There's a very high chance that you find something that helped you. There's a very high chance in what people share and everything, because now you just have basically like you have a wider network. If somebody sees an opportunity somewhere and shares it, you are part of that network and kind of receive it. Even if they don't share it directly to you, you are kind of exposed, and that's what being part of community like yours does for people. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. Savio was asking that could you elaborate more on the most important things a pitch deck for a TV show must have, pages and all.
Um. Okay, so there are different kinds of this of pitch deck. I think to help you get better at whether it's TV writing or even feature film is by reading scripts, and even for pitch decks you can actually search pitch decks on Google. I know the pitch deck for Stranger Things is actually available, like you could download the PDF basically, and when you look through that, you now see what's the essentials for having a pitch deck. But basically, without searching for that, you can find a pitch deck has to have what's the story idea, the what the characters will look like, what they call the story world, what kind of world is your story set in? Is it an apocalyptic world? Is it an everyday world? Is it story world can just be a shop. Story world can be a flat. Like in case of Friends, for instance, story world was the apartment and then the coffee shop and a bit of New York and where they lived. Story world can be just a space, a room for the entire series. Or it can just be this is story world. This is where you are going to find our characters. It doesn't have to be the entire world. It doesn't have to be 19th century France. It's just this is the world in which our story is being told. So you have a story world, you have your synopsis, your premise, you have your characters, you have for people who are pitching to businesses, you have how relevant this series is going to be to their platform. If you want to toast Netflix, you are telling them that okay, this is what the viewers are looking for. You have to have done your research as well. This is what the viewers are looking for. This is how it can be beneficial and everything. This is what this show will do for you basically, and then the executives can see that this show is going to be valuable and all that. So pitch deck is basically just and then the feel of you have to actually share mood boards and stuff for to get the feel of what your show is going to be like. For Stranger Things, you'll see it there. They have pictures and stuff to show what the show is going to look like, whether it's creepy, whether it is gothic, whether it is colorful and all that. It's all there. Just search pitch deck, pitch movie pitch decks on Google, and you see a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I hope that answers his question.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what document, but Damilare is asking if you could share the document
Yeah,
with us.
it's probably about Stranger Things pitch deck and all that. So
Okay.
for me personally, there's a site called stage32.com. That's stage32.com. So there are resources, and I think eventually in Nigeria we're going to grow to the point of having those resources for Nigerian this thing. But for foreign audience, if you search pitch deck, there are several places that you can find it. I don't know if your community has a resource section where there are scripts and pitch decks to download. But if you search for it on Google, you definitely find it. Definitely find it. Search the name of your show, search the name of your favorite movie, add PDF at the end for you to be more specific, and then you'll find you find that stuff. You find pitch decks and samples that you could use.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any other question coming in. Okay. So I think those are all the questions. Thank you
Yep.
for giving us your time today. We're really grateful and we learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Charles. Your section was very enlightening. Thank you so much. We hope to be able to get the sites so we can share it with members of our community
All
as
right,
well.
I'll send an email for that.
Well, most grateful. Thank you so much. Awesome, interesting, and enlightening.
You are
So enjoy the
welcome.
rest of the day.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye.
Okay, so we're done with the second speaker, and this we're having the networking session here. So, okay, I was asking before that we should say our names and listening from, so if you can write it again so that we can network, we can know each other, your name, where you're listening from, your occupation, anything, so that let's talk because I think we're is while we wait for the next speaker. Okay, I'll start first. My name is Babatunde Sharon, and I'm listening from Williams University, Ocean State. I'm a law student. So, Ma, you can also tell us where you're listening from.
Sharon, check your chat. I have a message for you.
Yeah. Okay, so while waiting, say your name and where you're listening from. Why are we shy? Okay, you can connect with Charles. You can message him on Instagram or probably on LinkedIn. And just the same thing with Ozioma as Miss Olalade said. You can let him know that you're coming from the screenwriting workshop that was hosted by IP Business Capital. So you can message him on Instagram. Okay, so I'll be sending the feedback form. Let's fill it so that let's hear back from you because your opinions are very important. We want to know how this workshop has impacted you and the things that you would love to see from IP Business Capital and from the African Creative Hub. And also, if you are interested in joining the African Creative Hub, you can message. I'll send the number. You can message the number that you would like to join the African Creative Hub. So let me send it. Okay, Savior said, I'm Savior, a screenwriter listening from Lagos. Thank you for joining us. We're really grateful. And we hope that you're enjoying the workshop. Okay, so Annabelle is saying that the speakers thus far have given profound wisdom, have gained a lot of understanding of the industry. My goal has been met. Thank you so much for making this event an open invite one. You're welcome, Annabelle, and we're grateful for having you here also. And Annabelle is listening from Kenya. Thank you for joining. So I've sent the number. If you'd like to join the African Creative Hub, is if you'd like to join the African Creative Hub, you can message this number that you'd like to be part of us. If you are a screenwriter or a potential screenwriter, then this program is definitely for you. So message the number and join us. Annabelle, please do well to join the African Creative Hub since you're considering venturing into this. It's a very interesting aspect. Success said, I'm Success. I'm a singer, actor, and screenwriter listening from Ilorin, Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. So let me share my screen. In case you're wondering what the African Creative Hub is about, so I can play a short video for us to just look at. Sorry. Okay. Please do well to join the African Creative. Okay, Damilare, his document, yes, Miss Ololade has already asked for it. So once he sends it to her, I don't know how it will be passed across to everyone that will be interested in getting it. I would ask.
So if you're a member of our community, we'll have the document shared to everybody who is a member of the community. So join and then you have access to it. Yes, because we're going to put it in the community. Yeah. So if you're a member of the African Creative Hub, we're going to collect the document from Charles and then it will be pasted, to be put in the hub for everybody to be able to use it as a point of reference. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so yes, I sent the phone number already. Let me start it so that we can see it. So if you want to, write stories that, sorry, my screen is off. To write stories that talk about Nigeria, talk about like stories that if you as a storyteller, to help you to grow particular skills, to grow your capacity, to tell stories that travel around the globe, to narrate the like narrate the stories of Africa through strategic storytelling that amplify our values, our heritage and culture. So you can join the African Creative Hall. So I'm going to send. Okay, let me. So yes, in case you would like to join, you can message that number and be added. So we're sorry for the delay. We're waiting for our third speaker for today. So and he'll soon join
Yes, so
us.
I have spoken to our speaker, is already joining the studio. In the next 2 to 5 minutes, we're going to see him in the studio joining us. Okay, so let's thank you so much. So thank you so much. If you're just joining us, our next speaker is coming on board soon. Our next speaker is coming on board. Just waiting for him to join us. Thank you very much.
Hi. Right, let me put this.
Hi, your good
Okay, hi.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay,
Yes, we can see your
can you
face
hear me?
now.
Can you hear me? O- Okay, all
Yes,
right.
we can.
Yes.
Mm.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so our next speaker is going to be talking about confidence selling and how to sell your script and approach executive producers confidently. And it's going to be taken by Mr. Ayo Emmanuel. And he's a screenwriter based out of Lagos. He has been actively working in the Nigerian movie industry since 2017, writing across film and television. Over the years, he has amassed screen credits such as Dear Diane, TNC's second season of My Name is Azed, Sakoleta, Nightmare Employee, and most recently, the just concluded second season of Smart Money Woman, where he served as the story editor. He, where he served as a story editor. So we're very grateful for having you here today to speak to us. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you so much,
All right. Hello. Hi,
Mr.
everyone. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon. We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, you guys can hear me. Okay, that's fine. Okay, let me just quickly browse through my notes for this session. Okay, so let us know when I should start speaking.
You are you can start, sir.
Okay, so I can start now. Okay, so hi everybody. My name is Emmanuel. I'm a screenwriter who I've been working in the industry for like 5 years now. Yeah. So I think so. Today I'm talking about confidently pitching your script to movie producers. So basically, I know that there are so many ways to go about it, and I think different things have worked for different people. However, I'm just going to be sharing from my own experience and what has worked for me. And who knows, hopefully, maybe if you try this, it may also work for you as well. Um, so on pitching producers your scripts and stories. So one of the first things I would say you should look out for before you even just think about pitching is understanding what kind of producers you want to work with. And so personally, this has been my experience with producers and also even with other writers is that so there are different kinds of producers for different platforms. So you have your producers like the big producers like Imu Abudu or like Ifeomon, who kind of movies they make are specifically for the big streaming platforms and for cinema. Then you also have your TV producers, who the movies they make are for platforms like DSTV, that's African Magic, and also for Iroko and Rock. And then you have your other film producers who their movies are majorly distributed via YouTube. So these producers have their YouTube pages where they upload their content to. So now with these three different types of producers, you now have to now just find out, okay, which do you want to go for? Is it for the ones on Iroko and also like do movies for Africa Magic as well? Or are you interested in working for the producers who have their content put on their YouTube pages or the bigger ones? So now coming in as a writer, and for me, I've built a good portion of my career writing spec scripts. So for those that may not understand what a spec script is, it's basically a speculation script, and that is a script that you, the writer, you come up with the idea, you develop the story yourself, and then you write the screenplay. So that's a spec script. And with spec scripts, what usually happens is it's a lot easier for you to pitch spec scripts to producers who either make content for African Magic or Iroko or YouTube. So basically, those that make TV films are the ones that are actually a lot easier to pitch, especially when you're pitching your own spec scripts. Because here's the thing, as much as it's very catchy and very alluring to want to work with the big producers who make movies on the big streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon, or in cinema, the chances of having such producers take interest in your spec scripts is really, really low. And and I'm saying this not to discourage anyone because I'm like, hey, you can try. But from my experience, from what I know, it's actually a hard bargain to get those producers to make your spec script. And this is why, because they are making those movies on such a large scale, they most likely will have their own personal stories that they want to be told. And so what usually happens in those cases is that rather than them get a spec script from a screenwriter, they would have their own story that they would develop in-house and then probably commission a screenwriter to write the story for them. Because like again, like I said, they're spending a lot more on production, so they most likely will have their own stories that they want to tell. But the thing with TV producers, especially if it's the ones that make movies for maybe Iruko or for Africa Magic, or the ones that have YouTube pages that they upload content to, what makes it different is that they are making movies in turn. That's the number of movies they are making is a lot. Their budgets are a lot smaller, but because sometimes they have these quotas to maybe hit maybe a certain number of movies over a certain period of time, they are usually a lot more open to collecting spec scripts from screenwriters. Because even though they have stories they want to develop themselves, they know that there really isn't the time. And there are some times where all they want to do is just shoot. And if they can get a script that they like and that is good, and that most importantly is budget friendly. So I'm going to go into budget friendly scripts along this line. They would be a lot more likely to purchase your scripts from you than these other guys because, like I said, they have so much to shoot. So like the bigger producers would probably make maybe 10, 15 movies a year, and that's even a stretch.
Yeah.
But these guys that make film for TV, that's for the African Magic and for the Eurocos or for their YouTube channels, they can make as much as 20, even more than that. And so in those positions, they actually have capacity to make more movies. And because of that, they will always need more scripts. So pitching them, there's less gatekeeping in pitching those guys, and it's actually a lot easier to make for them to actually purchase your script off you and to get your scripts made into a movie. Now, another thing you'd also need to bear in mind when going to approach these guys is what kind of movies appeals to these producers. Because the truth is, that's another thing. A lot of producers have certain genres of movies that they tend to gravitate towards. So in even like in even in Nollywood, I would say like so if I'd mention a name, someone like there's some producers that love things like thrillers, like mystery thrillers, crime thrillers, especially like now where we're seeing there's a lot of like crime thrillers seems to be the thing that's been trending with movies like most recently Gangs of Lagos and the Netflix series Shantytown. So there are some people that gravitate towards that genre. They love crime thrillers. Those are things that work for them. Then there are your producers that love romantic comedies, romantic drama. That if you want to sell them, if you can sell them a good romantic comedy script or a good romantic drama script, they'll most likely buy it off you. Or some who love family drama. So knowing this, you need to do your research based on who you want to approach to know, okay. And it's very easy. You need to check what's their filmography like. What have they done in the past? And based on that, you can tell, okay, they have a leaning towards this kind of film or this kind of TV show based on what they have produced in the past. But the truth is, I've tried it. I've tried selling a murder mystery to a producer was who is like this big fan of romantic comedies, and it was like just knocking my hand against a brick wall. Everything I tried to do to sell it to her, she was not just buying it. She did not care for it. So I ended up having to sell it to someone else who was more interested in stories of in that kind of genre. And it wasn't that the script was bad, it wasn't that the story wasn't good. It just wasn't for her.
Yeah.
So in some cases you would find people who would eventually buy it. But the truth is, they will not buy because it's something they want to do. They may just buy because they're like, okay, I want to shoot. Like I said, most of them have a certain quota that they want to meet for maybe the year or for the quarter. So they're like, okay, because I want to shoot this amount of movies, let me just buy the script of this person and just add it to my list. But the thing with that, when that kind of thing happens, is when a producer buys the scripts that they're not really enthusiastic about because it's not a genre that really appeals to them. One thing that happens is that one, that script may take a long time before it gets shot. Secondly, even when it does get shot, there's a certain level of care that will not be given to it in comparison to if it was a genre or a script that they were actually excited about shooting. And if you know anything about filmmaking, it's such a process that requires a lot of care. And you don't want someone to shoot something out of just, let me just shoot, not because they care for it. And so when that happens, the end result of the movie may come out and you're like, that was not what I wrote. And that's in fact that's a story for a whole nother day, but usually something like that can end up happening. So you need to discover what kind of movies or scripts has this producer done in the past, and if I should write this for this person. Another thing you also need to be cognizant about is you need to look at trends in the industry. And I know a lot of people like to make fun of Nollywood that, oh, Nollywood, people just copy themselves. Everybody's just making this kind of movie. That like Wedding Party came out, and then we saw a trend where wedding themed movies were coming out within that year and like some years afterwards. And as much as that criticism it's relevant, but to be honest, it's something that cuts across industries across the globe. It's not just a Nollywood phenomenon because even in Hollywood, as far back as the golden era of Hollywood from the 60s, 70s, there have always been trends. When Alfred Hitchcock released Psycho, it caused the wave where big grade horror movies were trending, and every big studio at the time wanted to jump on that bandwagon. when in the 80s and 90s was the peak period of the romantic comedies, where you had the likes of Julia Roberts and Meg Ryan making classics like Pretty Woman and Sleepless in Seattle. All the big studios were trying to churn out rom-coms in order to capitalize on that market. And even currently now, where now is like in the last, maybe in the last like 5 almost 10 years, it's been like superhero movies are all the rave right now. So everybody's trying to capitalize on that, from Marvel to DC and other studios that can like pull up that big blockbuster superhero film. So it's something that cuts across industries. So now, with that said, bringing it down to our industry, you need to look at what is trending. Because, like I said before, okay, so some producers may not lean towards a certain genre of a movie. However, if that's what's trending, a producer, because at the end of the day, it's a business as much as it's a work that's born out of passion, they would be very open towards purchasing that script for you because it's what is trending. And so I'm going to give a little context to that. About 3 years ago, there was a time Iroko was heavy on making what you'd call epic films. So when I mean epic films, I would say village films. So those films that are set in the villages, the ones where they have like this like markings on their faces and they have like this old costumes and all of that. And so it was huge. That was the trend as at the time. And so even producers who would like your average modern day romantic comedy, if you told them, oh, I have an epic script, they would most likely jump on it because as at the time that was trending, that was what the market was asking for. Because the market was asking for epic scripts. And so if you had an epic script at the time, they would they'll jump on that bandwagon and want to buy it off you because it was always trending. So you need to know, okay, what is trending now? Because again, it's very important, and to also work with the trends as at the time. Because like now, anyone who goes writing a wedding themed film, it may not be as hugely accepted as before, because now wedding party has been what? It's been a good number of years since that happened. So that trend has died and has gone. So you need to ask yourself,
Yeah.
okay, so what's the current trend now? And if that trend is still something that is on, then that means, okay, there's a likelihood that if you write a script for that genre that seems to be trending right now, your chances of selling it will be a lot higher. And which brings me to my next point on what I call safe bets. From my experience, some genres are just safe bets where, like, if you have a script within this particular genre, there's a likelihood someone is going to buy it. So, like your romantic comedies, I always thought Nollywood was built on romance movies. We love love. First of all, because we just love love in Nigeria, whether we like to admit it or not. Secondly, they are a lot cheaper to make than your average action, like your action films. So you would always find somebody who would be willing to dole out money to purchase a script that's a romantic comedy or a romantic drama. Now, another thing, hello? So can you still hear? I
Yes,
just want to double.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you
Hello?
hear me?
You can still hear me? All right. Okay, I don't want to be sure about that. Yes. Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Yes. So another thing that you also have to consider is your family drama. Like, it's always another safe bet where you're sure that you'll most likely find somebody, a producer, to spend on that, because that's another thing that people. And another thing, so this is maybe the from my what I was given to speak about. I feel it's very important if you're going to sell and pitch your scripts and stories confidently is understanding budget. Sometimes that's the difference between the writer who gets consistently and the writer who doesn't get to work as much. Is writing, understand that in writing, because your script determines the budget of your film. And you need to understand ways the producer reads your script. So the first time the producer reads your script, the producer reads it as a like storytelling. They're looking like building all those things that make for a compelling narrative when watching a film or reading a story. So that's what I call the creative read. Now the second time the producer reads that same script, they are reading it as a business person. So that's the business read. And when they're reading it this second time, they are not reading for elements of storytelling like they did during the creative read. They're reading as business. So they're reading at locations, this script. Because they're your script, that means the more time there'll be allocated. So they're looking at things like props. Does this require tons of props? Require at okay, the characters that you've even put here, what age brackets are they in? If your film mainly do not many factors. So during the creative read, the producer can read your script and love it and think, oh, fantastic. But by the time they read it the second time, which is the business read, that's when they now make the decision that do I want to go with this script or not? And I've heard producers say many times that they will read the script, oh, they love this so much. But because the budget was just going to be so much, in order for them to achieve it, they decided to look elsewhere. So you need to bear that in mind when approaching producers. So with all of that now, coming towards the table with confidence, if you're able to get all these markers right, it boosts your level of confidence when it comes to negotiating money. And so in order for you to be confident in doing that, you need to have done your homework and knowing, okay, that this script works. Because at the end of the day, if you're able to get all these things right, if when you're talking with a certain producer and you do not like the offer that you're being given, or you just feel there's something off, you always know that okay, you can go to somebody else because hey, who says just because this producer is not giving you a fair bargain that the next producer won't? And so that way you can actually be a lot more confident. And that producer would also know that if you walk away with this script, especially if it hits all these markers that I have mentioned before, that you are going to likely see another buyer. And sometimes some producers, they know a good script and they see it, and sometimes they just want to take advantage and be like, you know what, I'd rather have this because if this person goes away with that script and another person reads it and buys it off them, that can be a loss to me because what happens when the movie comes out and it's a hit and oh, I'm just there. Because if I back to my experience, so like I said before, I tried selling a mystery thriller to somebody who liked romantic comedies and she wasn't buying it. Funny enough, her husband was also a movie producer. So he was the one I sold the script to. When the movie came out, the movie was a hit on Iroko. And it helped even increase his trajectory as a producer that was making content for Iroko. And who would have known? And the good thing, like I said, he was actually excited about doing it. If eventually she had bought it, because it wasn't her thing, it might not have gotten the same reception because maybe she would not have been as committed towards doing the best with what she could do regarding the script. So it's very important that all these markers you put them into cognizance when writing. Do not just write because you are so passionate and you just want to write this epic script, because trust me, so many writers have so many epic scripts, but by the time you're writing that the opening scene, oh, choppers are flying over Third Mainland Bridge, and then people, scuba divers are in the water trying to get some treasure box underneath all the rubble that's under Third Mainland Bridge. Trust me, no one wants to put themselves in that situation where they are spending so much money on a script, not even on a script, on producing a movie that they're not sure what the reception would be like. So budget, budget, budget. Think budget when you write. And how your budget shows up in your script is the length of your script. The longer your script is, it means more days that will be spent on production. So the average number for a script should be 75 pages. Stretch it 80, 90. If you can stay in that 75 to 80 range, you're good. Second, not too many characters, because less characters means more actors that need to be hired. And so the less characters you have, less actors will get hired, and that is the producer gets to save money on that. Then locations. How many places are in this story? Do we have locations? Is every scene a new location? Because you need to know for every house you see in a movie, for every bar, money is paid for that. And that's how the budget goes up. So you need to bear that in mind. Secondly, props. And when I mean props, things like, oh, in this movie, is there something like, I'll take it back to the 90s, Diamond Ring. The ring in Diamond Ring was a prop. Now, how many of those things that are key to telling the story are in your movie, and how expensive are they? Because the more of that, that means the producer has to provide for those props, and that can also determine how much the budget is. So, as a writer, be creative in your writing, but think budgets. And if you're able to put all this in order, you'll be able to actually confidently approach producers with your scripts. Yeah, and your screenplays. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Awesome class. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. That was spot
Yeah.
on, very, very enlightening. Very enlightening. Some of my key takeaways, you have to sell your script to Jen. So if you people that are interested in romantic comedy, or maybe you have a story centered around action or family drama, you need to find people that are really interested in the genre of that movie. Because it's not enough to just sell to those who are
Okay.
uninterested. If you sell to uninterested parties, the visuals will not appear. I mean, the story won't come to life as much as you've always wanted it to be. So, I mean, selling script to those who are interested, very important. Then you can always jump on trends too. I mean, jumping. I remember you also mentioned when Wedding Party came out. After Wedding Party came out, they were even till date. There's this series of movies on Netflix. Something party, something wedding. So jumping on trends too important. Um, then one important thing that I picked too was having to. I even dropped a question in the chat box. When you're writing your script, how exactly do you think about budget with that? So it's important that you think about issues related to pages, right? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly.
Issues related to the pages, how many characters, right? Location, and so many other things. Thank you so much. That was interesting and spot on. Okay, so we'll be
Yeah.
taking questions now,
Okay.
right? First question has been answered. If you have any question, please put it in the chat box. Yeah, so we can take your question. So the second question is, what's the title of so the title of the section is Confident Selling, How to Sell Your Script. The name of
Mm-hmm.
the speaker is Eyo Emmanuel. I don't know if I pronounced Eyo correctly.
Yeah. Area Mano, yes.
Emmanuel. Okay, so that's the name of the speaker. So just to ask a follow-up question, right? You said you made mention of the fact that once the script is ready, the producer will look at it from two sides. You will look at it from the angle of the story and from the angle of the business. I know you
Yeah.
mentioned the business part, that we have to look at location, the houses involved, loss of character. But you mentioned something about pages. What's the range between?
Okay, so okay, pages. So this is the thing with okay, so Hollywood standard is we use a software, writing software called Final Draft. There are other writing softwares, but the Hollywood standard is Final Draft. And so in Hollywood, the way they calculate is that a page equals to 1 minute of screen time. So
Okay.
now, based on that calculation, let's say you have 90 pages. What that tells you is that based on that calculation is you have 90 minutes of screen time. Now, if you do the math, 90 minutes equals to an hour, 30 minutes of screen time. But now, let's bring it down to Nollywood. First of all, we don't talk as fast as our Hollywood counterparts speak.
Yeah.
So you need to bear in mind when writing that. So the line, so what would be, oh, good morning, here, good morning, here's your breakfast. Would be
Yeah.
good morning, a pause, maybe a sigh, then here's your breakfast. That's time going. So you need to bear that in mind. In fact, just before even hopping on this call, I was in a story conference, and one of our major issues now is that we're trying to reduce the length of the script. I wrote it, and even I am like, oh, more. We need to do something about shortening it so production can take less time. So with that in mind now, so the scenes, the pages, the longer they are, if the producer has to shoot everything, that means more time will be spent on production. So I would advise between 70 to 80 pages. If you can put in that sweet spot, even your big films have that. So I can tell you on authority, like a movie like Brotherhood now, the
Yeah.
screenplay isn't up to 80 pages.
Mm.
And that's because they understood that if this thing is too long, it means more time on production. So as you're writing, don't get too carried away. Bear in mind that you should not exceed this certain number, just so you stand a better chance of having your screenplay sold. Because the worst thing that can happen for a writer is they're like, okay, nice. Now take 20 scenes or 20 pages out. And because you're so stuck in your feelings of, oh, I wrote this and I wrote that, you do not know where to remove it. So you need to also understand that. So all writers write as creative people, but think as business people.
Awesome. Awesome. And part of that is also, you know, don't be emotional. Don't be emotional about your script. Once you write it, if it's time to remove something, go ahead and remove what you need to remove. So don't be emotional about certain characters or about certain scenes or certain things that you have put in the script. Once you feel like the script is over 80 pages, going into 90, and even extending beyond that, so you now have to start to don't get too connected because as creatives you can be very, so don't get too connected with that. Start to edit and start to pull out. Another question, there are other questions in the chat box, but in terms of the story aspects, you mentioned that there are two aspects. There's the business read and there's the
Yes.
story read. In terms of the story read,
Yes.
what do you produce and studio houses will want to like see, once they start reading
Okay.
the
So depending on the genre, so different genres there are different expectations when reading stories within that genre. But on a broader level, what I would say is it needs to be interesting. Like it needs to be interesting. And I say, they say one of the crimes of film is that just don't be boring. I feel I feel if you look back at movies you've enjoyed, it's not that they didn't have flaws. Their flaws were eminent, clearly, but they were entertaining. So even with all the flaws they had, we could forgive them because they were entertaining. And so that's what producers when they are reading the script. Because trust me, reading something that isn't entertaining can be hard work. As someone who has had to read scripts because I've had to rewrite them, trust me, you don't want to read a script that is not interesting. it's draining, and it just makes it so tedious to go through. And that's the worst. That's a situation you don't want to find yourself in, where this script is not just entertaining and you just find yourself trying having to power through to get to the end. Once a producer is in that headspace, trust me, it's difficult because once they drop that script because it's such a tedious read, the chances of them picking it up again would be hard because so many things this producer has so many things to do in his or her life other than read your script. So it has to be entertaining. Then also, there's also thing that then on a more story level, there are things like your characters, also your plot, the believability of the things happening in your story is also very important. All those things matter. Like there's so much I could go into it, but I'll just say on surface level, be entertaining. In your writing, make sure it's not cumbersome to read. And this is something that I learned because even I used to be a victim of this, where I would write like my lines and my dialogue in blocks. And what a lot of writers do is that when somebody reads your script and all they're seeing is blocks of text, it already sends the message to the brain that, my God, this is going to be a lot to read. So when you're writing it, make sure you leave lines. There's a rule in Hollywood that say they want to see more white on the page when reading scripts. So if the lines are not so much, at least if your dialogue can condense it at most 4 lines, even if it's one line, your action lines, 1 line, 2 lines, it makes the reading process a lot easier because it doesn't feel intimidating when somebody opens your script. So that's something writers should bear in mind when producers read the script as a creative on the story level. The presentation of the script, and also make sure that your story is entertaining. Don't
Awesome.
don't go for don't go for perfection. Just go for entertainment first. Then maybe when there's a second draft, you can now start ironing those kinks out, but make sure it's entertaining from the get go.
And interesting. So go for entertainment. That's how you can sustain the attention of that, or even the studio
Yes.
house, right? So once they see it and this is different, this is interesting, and they get interested, want to buy into it. Okay, awesome. Another person says if the script is about 90 pages, what do we say about 2 hours? Movies that are about 2 hours, you know. So movies like, I guess what the person is saying is movies like that bore people out, or how do you really, you know?
So here's the thing: there are movies that are 2 hours. There are movies that are 2 hours and some minutes, and it's an ongoing conversation about. So what does that mean? And here's the thing: the truth is, I've seen 60-page scripts in Nollywood that have translated into 2 hours of screen time. Sometimes it still baffles me how that is able to happen. But here's what I would say is that as long as yes, there are 2-hour films, I feel a movie should be as long as it needs to be. However, you need to bear in mind that in this current zeitgeist of TikTok and fast-paced content that we're living in, somebody dedicating an hour and how many minutes or 2 hours of their life to watch your movie, it's a worthy investment. So you need to look at it and say, okay, that if there's a way you can make your film shorter, then by all means do. Because here's the thing, even with streamers would like it if your movie can fall in that sweet spot of an hour 30 minutes to an hour 45 minutes, just below 2 hours. It's the reason why if you look at even things like TV, we've gone from when TV, your average TV show like Lost or Grey's Anatomy used to be like 20 something episodes per season to now to shows now being just 8 episodes or at most 10 episodes per season. The truth is people's concentration span isn't what it used to be. So if you can, do what you can to reduce the length of your film, is what I would say. But if the story you're telling has to be 2 hours long and you feel there's nothing you can do about it, then hey, by all means. I mean, up to now, we still see 2 hour films, but I would strongly suggest if there's something you can do to reduce it. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you, the screenwriter, it's about the audience. You need to always bear that in mind that the audience is the one that is watching this film that you are writing. So you need to always put their interest at heart.
Awesome. I mean, left to me, like 2 hours movie, it's going to bore me out. I can't sit down and watch a movie for unless it's a series. I'm serious. Unless it's a series and there's always something to look forward to. You understand? Like Charles said before now, when you're watching a TV series, there's always the suspense. There's always something you want to figure out. Something like
There are always the
what
cliffhanger
is
endings.
what was this recent TV series Moabudu did? Uh, Blood Sisters.
Um, Blood Sisters.
Exactly. I'm sure that was more than 2 hours, but I had time to like wanted to just keep watching it because there's something to look forward to, right? So a movie, I mean, a feature film now for 2 hours, no, I don't think it's a good idea. So what Taylor said is absolutely correct. Try as much as possible to narrow it down. Okay, so we have another question. It says, can you give us an example of your best and your worst, experience in your career and how you overcame? So your best experience as a screenwriter, professional screenwriter, and then also your worst challenge and how you overcame it.
Hmm. Best worst experience. So I don't know if funny enough, I don't know if I can single out one experience as my best experience. But what I
Okay.
would say is that for my film career, what usually what makes it worth it, or the experiences that always counts for me, is when I read the comments on a certain movie I made and people talk about how it resonated with them emotionally. I remember reading something on a movie I watched and somebody dropped a comment about how this movie basically helped her reassess things that she was thinking about before getting into marriage. And that's actually touched me. So those are the moments that just make it all worth it. Or somebody tells me, oh, they watched my movie and it did this for me. Because prior to coming into film, I watched movies that shaped my thoughts and my beliefs on so many things. And so to be in a position where I can make film and it's not just entertaining, but it's shaping people's thoughts and beliefs about certain issues, it's the plus for me. So that is something that I would always say is always a high spot for me.
Okay.
Now, my low spots, I don't know. We're going to need wine because there are plenty. So let me see. Is there a particular one that stands out for me? Um, so so probably I think I don't think maybe right now maybe because I'm on the spot but there isn't one that stands out for me. However, I would say there have been some things that I have experienced and I've thought like this is not how it should be. Just things like maybe producers who just come up to you and like give you like, pardon my French, a very shitty offer, and you're just like, are you being serious right now? Or you
Real
just even
life.
have those, yes, or you just have those scenarios where sometimes you've done the work, you've collaborated with all these people, and somebody now messes up with your credits. I think that's always the pet peeve of every writer. Like I've had my name misspelled instead of me being called Ayo, I've been called Ayo. I've like it's always very funny. Or when everyone is getting credit on like Instagram for the film, the writer's name is just missing conveniently. And I'm like, are you guys being serious? You guys have credited the generator man. How is the screenwriter's name not here when you
Not
can
there.
credit the generator man and the props person? So yeah, so those are the things that I just lose. But again, with every, I doubt if there's any field or industry that doesn't come with its lows and highs. I'm sure if I ask you, you can probably give me so much about the lows and highs of being an IP in the IP legal profession. So yeah, so those are the lows and those are the highs, but I guess we just bounce back. We don't have a choice. You wallow in it for maybe a day or two, and then you bounce back and keep on working.
Yeah, I love that, you know. So everybody, you always, there's always the, what's that slang again? At some point, you always eat breakfast. Everybody will chop breakfast. Well, you know, you just have to bounce back and keep moving, like Ayo said. You know, just keep moving, keep building your crafts. With time, you will know that you eventually get better. I've enjoyed this conversation. It's been a very interesting one. Um, I like the fact that, you know, your presentation was detailed, very enlightening, spot on, right? So we have another question. It says, what would an average script cost? I feel like many screenwriters are having this question. They just want
Okay,
to, yeah.
about money.
Let me complete the
So
question. I think he has something
okay,
added. He said, especially for YouTube. He said, many producers like to claim the page hasn't made enough money, so they underprice the scripts. So let's hear from you.
I hear that. So me personally, I would say they say yes, the page hasn't made money, but the truth is they are making content so the page can make money. So if they are going to make content for the page to make money, then they should know that it will cost them money. After all, it costs money to make money. So I don't think that's not a valid excuse. I hear it all the time. And when they start with them, I'm like, you know what, I'm the wrong person for you. And I know I say that from a place of privilege because I've come thus far in my career, and I know it's not easy for someone else who is just starting out or who isn't where I am to make that kind of saying. But the truth is, if I'm honest, there isn't a universal price as to how much your screenplay can be sold on like YouTube platform now, because various factors from negotiation, from who again you're negotiating with, and again maybe your matter of experience. Because I've heard people who have sold their scripts for paltry sums of like 30 to 50, and I've heard of people who've sold it for decent, I wouldn't even say big amount, but decent of like from maybe 150 to like 300 for YouTube. So it all depends on so many factors. I can't tell you that there's a certain amount of money that's say, okay, this is how much scripts go for. What I would just say is I think you need to different things are going to actually make up the reason as to how much you're able to sell your script for. And so those will probably be things such as the level of experience, the quality of the work you're doing, and who the producer that you are working with. And so here's the thing, and I noticed and with that, in doing your homework, I would say if you can, before approaching producers, when you've seen the work that they've done before, try and try and then find out what the writers they've worked with before, what was the experience like with those writers? So that can give you foresight. Because, and even up to date, I even still do it. Because sometimes when you know the kind of person you're going to be negotiating with, it makes you understand, okay, what to expect and know if this person is going to be a waste of your time or not. So I would say, if you can, before just approaching any, and it's very easy, look for their films, check the writer that was credited, try looking for them on social media and get across to them, and they will be able to tell you. But to tell you that there's a universal price, I can't tell you that there's a universal price until your script goes through. It's just being honest. It
Awesome.
isn't certain. Yeah.
I totally agree. There's no standard price. You just have to, you know, negotiate. You also have to know what you're worth, build your craft, you know, play the game well. So it depends on a whole lot of factors. I totally agree. Then another person is saying, I think that's a follow up to the last question. I think a follow up to some of one of the question you answered before this last question.
Okay.
It says, okay, the person who was asking about 90 minutes and then 2 hours,
Okay.
what happens to a movie for 2 hours and all of that. So she says that success says that, how do we get the, he said if, okay, she's saying that she's talking about the screenwriting part. So she says if the screenplay gets more pages than the standard 90 minutes, does that mean that,
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand. Thank you, sir. I'm talking about the scriptwriting part. Does it mean your screenplay gets more pages than standard? Okay, so she's saying that if it's a 2 hours movie, does that mean that the script is now more than 75 to 80 pages? And then,
Okay, okay,
yeah,
okay. Let me understand this. She's saying that, okay, like if you see a 2 hour Nollywood film,
yeah,
does that mean that the screenplay itself was over 90 pages?
yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So here's the thing. It's yes and no. And why I say this is because a lot of things matter. So what I said is just an estimation, but the truth is, a 90-page screenplay can give you 2 hours, can give you less. But I have also seen instances where a 65-page screenplay also translated into 2 hours of screen time. So it doesn't always mean that simply because a screenplay is longer, that that every movie that's about 2 hours long is actually less than it's actually over 90 pages or 90 pages. There's a lot of factors. So, okay, let me break it down like this. There are some movies that are heavy on long action sequences. So there's something, so you can see something as simple as, oh, three people break into the house, they ransack the place looking for a pair of shoes. On the script, that's probably 3 lines of description. But now for those 3 lines of description to appear on screen can end up taking maybe 2, 3 minutes in order for you to see that those 3 lines translated to screen. So those are the little things and little nuances that make it very different. That's why it's not a clear-cut thing. That's why some scripts can be less than 90 pages, but still give you 2 hours, if not more. And some scripts can be 90 pages and can still hit that 2 hour mark or even go slightly below that. Yes. So it's not set in stone. Let me see this.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So somebody says, great section. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this section, actually.
Okay,
I
okay, I think
really,
I'm going through the questions now. Someone said, what's my name? My name is Eyo Emmanuel.
okay,
Uh, okay, I'm reading through the comments. Yeah.
okay. So please feel free to connect Emmanuel on Instagram. Okay, I'm pretty sure that we have
Okay.
dealt with all the questions here. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
so before I go, so I'm going to, I think, is it here? I'm going to drop a link to my email list.
yes.
So for those, so in that, once you sign up for my email list, I'm going to give you like a free ebook that I wrote. It's called Character Arcs. So basically, in that ebook, I explain like different character arcs and I reference like some of popular movies in pop culture that you could use to understand character arcs. So I'll drop the link there. So do sign up and you probably get an email from me. But yeah, so it's let me see. So do I drop it here? I don't, I'm trying to figure out how to even work this comment section, how to drop the link.
Oh, okay.
Mm,
I think it's a matter of copying and pasting the link. So if you look at this side of this, um, I think it should be the right hand side for you. This is left hand side for me. So you see some
okay.
sort of buttons. We have chat,
Okay,
captions.
private chat.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, you can put it in the private chat box too. So I'll copy it and put it in the general chat box. That works too.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to do that. Let me see. Where did I put that link? Okay, I'm coming.
Okay.
Let me try and get this to work. Uh, okay. Yeah. Right. So I've posted the link there for my mailing list. So just fill it up and feel free to send me and reach me on Instagram at Uncle Ayo, and
So
I'll
yeah,
be sure to reply.
that's the link,
Yeah.
guys. So please subscribe. Okay, so you can. I'm sure you pretty need the ebook, right? Character acts. Trust me, every script you must have solid characters, vividly described, right? Solid characters are key to you know screenwriting and script writing. Very important. So ensure you join the mailing list so that you can have access to that book. So important. I don't know if we have any question anymore. Without any question, we've finally come to the end of this program. I want to say a big thank you to all our speakers. I'm saying a big thank you also to Ayo. Your class was very interesting. I don't know how you do it, but it looks like you have a gift for you have a gift for explaining things in a very simple and you know um, very simple and insightful way, in such a way that is also interesting as well. And I'm sure that that also will tell in your script because we are already seeing an aspect of that already. I'm sure it's
Thank you very much
affecting
for
your
that.
script. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm really grateful. And to everybody who has participated in this section as well, thank you for being a part of this. I'm sure that you've learned a thing or two. So we have a feedback link. Okay. We would love to hear from you, right? So we can also serve you better going forward with our programs. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat box now. Please feel free to submit, your feedback. Tell us the things we should improve on, and also tell us how the section has enlightened you, right? Tell us what you learned and your key takeaways from the section. Thank you, Success. Thank you so much. So right now, we're saying a very big thank you to Aya Emmanuel. Thank you very much. Okay, so
All
we
right.
are
Thank you
rounding
very much.
up. Guys, have a fantastic day ahead.
All right. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.